Transport Center in The Hague of Netherlands. My name is Egbert Roze. I'm the director of the Royal Dutch Association of Landscapers and Gardeners, and I'm your host today as a supporter of the So Green movement. I'm very happy that we have today here people joining from all over the world. We have people from Japan, konnichiwa. We have people from Canada, from the United States, where it's very early in the morning. But we are very happy that you joined us all in discussing today with us about the nature-based solutions and ecosystem services that we deliver as a Green branch. So that is what we want to do today. We want to present ourselves, the So Green movement, for the first time as a cooperation between so many associations, European associations within the green domain. From architects, landscape architects, to landscapers and gardeners, to World Urban Park representatives, but also many people who are working in this green domain, who are working on green solutions. So that is very, very nice and very important for us to present ourselves, to present our solutions, and to show how we link to, let's say, the important societal challenge that we face at this particular moment. Because if we are talking about European policies and where we can link, there we see, for example, that climate change is a very important topic within European policies, but also the loss of biodiversity is a very important theme, the health of people and circular economy. And that is why we are looking at how we can link policy and practice together, and how can we bring people together in order to inspire ourselves in making possible these solutions at a local level, because greenery is a local theme, but is also, let's say, a high topic which must be brought in policy together from the European perspective. If we are looking at the European Green Deal, there we see so many angles that we can join. For example, the climate policy, where there's important things to do, and about biodiversity, which I'm very happy that we have today here somebody from the European Commission who can explain something about what we are going to do. Within the renovation wave, which is a very important agenda about how can we improve buildings, make them more energy efficient, but also make them green. And also looking at how can we scale up circular developments, work on a skills agenda, because also education is very important. We need the right skills in order to realize this agenda. So there's a lot of things involved, very lot of things involved. And I think it's very good that we meet each other and that we inspire each other, that we put policy and practice together in order to create chances. And that is what we are going to do today. We are going to present So Green movement as the movement which has the expertise in order to realize these solutions, and also to present our declaration in which we state that it's very important that we must go on the green move, which offers long-term solutions, chances. Which offers, and that is what we are going to for us all. So that is what we are going to do today in our symposium. We are going to hear speakers from all over Europe, specialists, but also policymakers, who are going to explain to us where the chances are and how we can cooperate. We have created a program within, let's say, several elevator pitch, 15 minutes. It's very brief, but it gives a very good impression about what is possible and how we can link to each other. I will present the speakers to you very briefly, but if you go to the platform, there you see that all the CVs of the speakers are mentioned and that you can see what kind of background that they represent. If you have questions, you are invited to put them in the chat, because I'm here today together with Marie Mertens, who is the Secretary General of the Elca and also a very strong supporter of So Green, and we together fill in the program for you together. So I hope, of course it's digital, but that we have the opportunity to link to each other, to exchange ideas with each other, and to share opinions, which is very important and very nice to do. So I wish you a very nice program and a fruitful program this afternoon, and I hope that this delivers a lot of inspiration to work together, to join together, and to make this movement, this So Green movement, even stronger. So let's go to the first speaker. I'd like to suggest to hear somebody, a young person, who can tell us something about what is the idea, what's the mission that we want to fulfill. And I'm very happy that today Elina Ojanen from Finland is with us to explain how she looks at the future of greenery. She's a young landscaper and designer, and she has a very nice opinion, I think, about how we can work on greenery for the future together. So, Elina, can I give you the word?
Yes, I believe I can. I'm about to share my screen and start my presentation. And okay, so good day to you all. And so my name is Elina Ojanen, and I'm a 26 years old landscape designer from Finland. I have quite strong and varied work experience in landscape gardening. I graduated in 2013 from Vocational Institute as a landscape gardener, where I expertised on stoneworking. Despite my young age, I have worked in this profession for the past 9 years. My first touch to landscape gardening was in 2012 when I was 17 years old and got into my first internship at Tyylipihat Oy from Vocational Institute. During first summer, I learned so much more about plants, designing, and stoneworking. Each day had been slightly different, and there were new challenges to be solved. This just felt a career that I wanted to have, so I continued my studies in Häme University of Applied Sciences. In December 2018, I received a bachelor's degree from the Landscape Design degree program. And today in universities and universities of applied sciences, studies focus more on building a greener world with more different kinds of perspectives. Students are encouraged to do their theses on topics that boost building the future in more sustainable ways. Most of the students have taken a part of studies that will be useful in the future. For example, there has been multiple theses made about green roofs, green walls, and recyclable materials that we can use instead of concrete. But after my first internship, I worked at the same company, Tyylipihat Oy, until the end of 2020. It was a smaller enterprise run by 2 women, and most of its workers were also women, and I found it a pleasant place to work. It is no longer so strange to be a woman in this profession in Finland, but during my internship in Netherlands at M. van der Spek Group, I noticed that it was a little surprising for some of the people. And also in Finland, yeah, thank you, Henrik. Also in Finland, during my first years of work, I was quite often undervalued and my skills and knowledge were underestimated, usually by men, but also by some older women. Luckily, my bosses gave me support and helped me to get through from those unpleasant situations. Over the years, I have experienced less underestimating and prejudges, even I am still just 26 years old. In addition to my aging, these changes in society have also occurred in the way women get treated by others. Currently, there are quite equal amount of men and women working in landscaping at Finland. Well, because of my background, my strengths in landscape gardening have focused on building and designing private gardens. One of my passions towards this profession is to be an intensifying part of changing the living habitat via sustainable environmental construction. Due to building gardens, I learned to incorporate difficulties of building and maintaining gardens in my designs. In every garden I have been building, I have noticed the pros and cons of every design. Details do surprisingly big differences. But my eagerness to develop as a better professional gave me a gentle push to apply for a new job which could make it possible. And currently I'm working at VRJ Group as a worksite manager. And in natural gardens, utility gardens, and sustainability are more often seen values in private gardens. Stone waters are thought to be absorbed into plots, and people prefer plants that attract butterflies, and several more people want to have their own biocomposter. And on the picture on the right side, you can see one perennial area that I made a couple years ago. In upper picture, there is the planting area right after the planting, and in the lower picture, you can see that after 1 year of growth. And all of those perennial plants are there to attract butterflies. They also attracted some rabbits which like to eat some of the prettiest flowers. But I think that with utility gardens, the popularity of useful plants and greenhouses has risen. More often, customers of private gardens want to have their own strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries, just besides the classical apple trees. Also, herbal beds that are easy to maintain with children have more often been in their wish list. And in older houses, people tend to use collected stormwater to water the plants, which reduces the usage of clean drinking water. And I want to enhance all these movements with my work. And here you can see some other pictures of of my work. And I just think that it has been really interesting to see the development in landscape design and to experience the transition between different eras. About 10 years ago, green roofs were talked about in very skeptically, and people were not sure just how would they work in Finland. In recent years, green roofs are made automatically for most new buildings in the urban environment. In landscape design, people aim to do more sustainable and greener future. Social, ecological, and financial sustainability are more often seen as a value when designing new gardens. For example, in public parks and condominium gardens, they have more often utility plants than just ornamental shrubs. The urban farming has become a trend in recent years. Before, it was weird to grow your own potatoes in a bucket if you didn't live in the countryside. But nowadays, people are sharing tips on Facebook and Instagram on how to grow potatoes in a bucket at your own balcony. I just wonder how the future will look like in like the next 10 years. Just what practices will be then obvious basic parts that we want to incorporate in every garden and public park. I think that social sustainability takes into account in different age groups in a diverse way and creates a community in public places. Ecological sustainability focuses on rainwater management through vegetation, and the popularity of butterfly meadows has even exploded. Economic sustainability is also partly related to ecological sustainability, which is reflected, for example, in the utilization of land masses on land. Why make a flat park when land masses can be dumped in heaps and new terrain forms created? I think Finland is a few years behind the rest of Europe in terms of sustainable development solutions, but we can follow the models that have already proved to be good. Okay, that's
Okay, Elina. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
Yeah, I just have a few more things if there's time for that.
Yes, please do.
Great. in every year we have had more environmentally friendly products both in private and public gardens that are good alternatives to old ones. And I would like to I would I would say that their use will increase in the future. This is only a good thing because individual people also have a big role to play when working towards more sustainable environment. The more private gardens that are made to support sustainable environment, the greener world we'll have in the future. Homes are the places where children are grown and therefore the place where they are influenced the most. Changes in the society happens easier through childhood experiences. Therefore, the path for greener and more environmentally friendly society comes from the families. This change might not be fast, but we'll have to start it soon, for it is the surest way to convert our society. And in the end, the choice and decision of the individual has a great importance. Now I say thank you all
Okay.
and have a wonderful day.
Yes. Elina, thank you very much for your very nice presentation. What I saw was very beautiful work that
Yes.
you have made. And we always say, as a sort of a cliffhanger, the time that greenery was decoration, that time is over. We are working now on green with benefits. And it's very good to see that in your work that you have a lot of attention for, let's say, biodiversity, for climate matters, but also edible plants which are applied. And I think it's very interesting that you say we have to attract youngsters, children, as soon as possible with nature. Because I think that that's really the basis. If you have, as a child, something with nature, then you will have very good memories about greenery. If not, then you will never have, let's say, the green touch. So I think that's very good that you have in Finland such a program and that you're working on attracting children in the profession as well. A question for you, Elina, is you are a woman in the green profession. For example, in other countries, you said there you see more men than women in the profession. Can we do something about that?
I think that it's just stop talking about men's and women's works differently. I mean, in Finland, we haven't just talked about that stuff for recent years, and I think that to get more women in this industry in other countries as well, they just it's not about that hard work is only for men. I mean, men are better in some of them, but also women can do it.
Yeah. So it's very good to present the possibilities of the profession as broad as possible.
Yes.
Yes. And also what you mentioned in your presentation was that you did some traineeship in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
What kind of insights gave you that? What kind of ideas brought you to that?
I'm sorry, the line was a little bit bad. Could you repeat?
You did the traineeship. What did you learn during that traineeship?
Yes. I learned so much more, even more about designing, and I think that you guys use plants in more creative way in Holland, and also some more creative material using. And Ruud from M1 he gave me this wonderful lecture about building natural gardens and how to design them and what are the biggest problems in them.
So that's perfect. Yeah. Very good to hear, Elina. I want to thank you for your presentation and your ideas. And I hope that this inspires a lot of youngsters to also choose for a profession within the green domain, because there's a lot of chances, there's a lot of variety, there's a lot of things to do. So maybe in future, the future is really green with a lot of green specialists. Elina, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, all the way from Finland, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker. I said something about the European Green Deal, and in which the biodiversity strategy is a really important element of it. And I think that that it is very good that we have today somebody from the European Commission here to explain to us what this strategy is and how we can link to that. So I'd like to give the word to Mr. Stefan Leiner, who is head of the Biodiversity Unit of DG Environment. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Egbert, and ladies and gentlemen, dear all. It's a real pleasure to me to take part in this So Green symposium, and congratulations for launching your movement. I will share my screen, and also I have a short presentation. Okay. Let's go back to the first slide. Here we are. So what I will do is to briefly summarize the main elements and the context in which the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030 was developed, and focusing in particular on those elements which I think are most relevant to your profession, to the So Green movement, and how the So Green movement can also help implementing and delivering on this strategy. You mentioned it already, the European Green Deal is really what is driving one of the key priorities of the von der Leyen Commission. And I'm working now since many years on biodiversity issues, and I can tell you that never has the topic of biodiversity, together with the wider topic of environment, be so high on the political agenda of the EU. It's really a central element, the biodiversity, of all the other aspects of the Green Deal. And we also try to create more synergies with other policies like the Farm to Fork strategy, dealing with how we eat and how we produce food, the adaptation strategy that you will hear later from my colleague from DG Klima, the circular economy dimension, obviously the climate change mitigation agenda. So all of these are very much interlinked, and biodiversity it's at the center of our European Green Deal activities. Now, when we developed this strategy, it was adopted in May last year. We were basing ourselves on new scientific developments. There is this IPBES, the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, which is, if you want, something like the UN Climate Council. It is for biodiversity. And this has not only demonstrated that we have, aside of a global climate crisis, also a global biodiversity crisis with an enormous increase of disappearance of species and ecosystems. And if we don't do anything, we are risking to lose 1 million species in the next 10 years' time. And they also demonstrated that this will have not only disastrous effects of our planet and our nature, but also on our economic and social well-being. But they also identified the main causes for this loss of biodiversity, which is, if you look at the direct drivers, really the change of land use, so the destruction of very diverse ecosystems like tropical forests, peatlands, etc., into less diverse ecosystems like intensive agricultural, urban areas, etc. Also the direct exploitation like overfishing in the marine, climate change, which might become the biggest threat to biodiversity if we do not keep the 1.5 degrees limits, pollution and invasive alien species, also a big driver. And we really wanted in our biodiversity strategy to address those drivers and also the more indirect drivers that are related to our economic model, etc. I already mentioned it. We don't do this just to preserve species and habitats, but because we also know that a healthy planet is the basis for any kind of sustainable development. For example, even the World Economic Forum, which in the past didn't deal so much with biodiversity, has now recognized that biodiversity is one of the biggest risks to business, and has also identified that more than half of the global GDP is directly dependent on healthy ecosystem that can develop their ecosystem services, which is the basis for our social and economic developments. There is By the way, also a clear link between the way that we encroach more and more natural ecosystems and pandemics, and also our ability to recover for that. So hence, it is very important that in this time where we will have huge investments going into recovery from the pandemic, that we invest those in areas that also help us in restoring and protecting more natural ecosystems. So this is the context in which we developed this biodiversity strategy. It has four main legs or elements or pillars. The first one is to increase the area of protected areas and the quality of those areas in the EU to 30% of land and sea to be protected, and a third of which to be strictly protected. So that's the protect nature strand of our strategy. Then there is the restore nature strand, and this is really a new element with a very strong emphasis on the restoration of nature. I will come a little bit more into this later. There is also a whole chapter on the various enabling elements we need for the transformative change, dealing with financing, with a better governance system, with also the public participation involving all of the citizens in creating cooperations with various sectors. And also important is that there will be a conference of the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, which was supposed to take place in October last year, but because of the pandemic will now take place this October. And this is to develop a new global biodiversity framework, because it's important, as we have a planetary crisis, that we work on this on a planetary level. And we therefore wanted to demonstrate that the EU is ready to take a leadership role in the preparation of those negotiations by demonstrating that we are ready to take our own commitments on that important international agenda. So I mentioned that at the core of the strategy is the EU Nature Restoration Plan, and that has very concrete 2030 commitments. So on top of the 30% protected areas, there are a number of commitments which range from, for example, having more biodiversity in our agricultural ecosystems, so dealing with landscape features, with organic agriculture, addressing pollutants, so reducing the risk and use of pesticides, in having also more sustainable forest management, planting 3 billion additional trees, looking at the decline of pollinators, restoring free-flowing rivers, addressing also invasive alien species, and looking also in marine habitat restoration. So one important element, and this is why I highlighted this one in green, is there is also a chapter on urban biodiversity with a number of measures related to restoring urban biodiversity. So with the commitments that, for example, European cities with more than 20,000 habitats should have an urban greening plan, and that we also create a green EU urban greening platform under the Green City Accord. And there are a number of other measures that are in line with what we have just heard, and I'm sure we will hear today, in trying to get more biodiversity into our urban areas and also into the wider landscape. I mentioned the Green City Accord. It was launched in last October. It's really a movement of European cities committed to safeguard our environment. And it's basically an opportunity for cities to sign the accord and thereby commit to take measures to green their cities, to make them greener, cleaner, and healthier. And that will then also support the delivery of also our EU biodiversity strategy. So invitation to work with the colleagues you work with representing cities and make sure that they also support and sign the Green City Accord. And we are now working in developing a template for what those urban greening plans could be, together with representatives of local and authorities, in order to make sure that we have really a bottom-up approach that can generate best practice and also best knowledge in order to have more biodiversity into our urban areas. I already mentioned the enabling transformative change. I will not go too much into details here. Maybe just to add that we are also developing, as part of the restoration plan, new legislation, which is to develop legally binding restoration targets. And within that, we are also looking into, we are doing now the impact assessments into having some legally binding restoration targets related to urban areas, like, for example, an increase and achieving a certain threshold of a minimum area of an urban, functional urban areas that has green areas within it. So this is also something where we are looking into. Part of this is also promotion of what we call nature-based solutions, both for climate change adaptation and mitigation. I don't have to tell you how important those green areas are for all these kind of elements that are mentioned on this slide. You know better than me, but just to say that this is also very much part of our both climate and biodiversity policy to promote nature-based solutions. And we think that more and more of the investments that go also into climate policy addressing should go into those nature-based solutions, because they are the best and the cheapest way to adapt and mitigate climate change in many ways. So another initiative which is not part of the EU biodiversity strategy, but I still thought it would be good to briefly raise it because I think it also can create a lot of opportunities for you, is the European Bauhaus, which is an activity aimed at connecting the European Green Deal to our living spaces. So it's meant to be a creative and interdisciplinary movement that is really a bottom-up making, a platform for experimentation, connection, fostering collaboration across thinkers, and those who want to design our future in ways of linking together. It's supposed to be a bridge between science, technology, and art and culture, and also an invitation to change perspective and to look at our green and digital challenges as opposed to transform our lives for the better, and also meant to be a fresh approach to finding innovative solutions to complex societal problems. So within there is a lot of calls for initiatives, etc. And I do think that the So Green movement can help in also integrating the aspect of nature-based solutions, of greening areas into that Bauhaus movement, and I count a lot on you in order to fully engage into this movement. So the strategy, after it was adopted in May, we obviously started immediately to implement it. I already mentioned that we are working on developing now legally binding restoration targets, on developing this new governance framework. We already had some achievements. For example, there was an agreement between the Council, the Parliament, and the Commission to spend at least 10% of the multi-annual financial framework, so the EU budget, for biodiversity by 2026. So that will increase a lot of the funding opportunities as well. The other institutions, the Council has reacted and welcomed the strategy and its ambition, the Committee of the Region as well, the Economic and Social Committee, and we are waiting now in June for the European Parliament to also react to the strategy, but we also expect there a support for the strategy and its implementation. On the global side, there was also unprecedented mobilization on biodiversity at the last UN General Assembly. More than 80 heads of state have signed up to the Leaders' Pledge for Nature, which is a very strong pledge on dealing with both biodiversity and climate change issues at the global level. There are also specific processes highlighting the important role of local and regional authorities who have signed up to the Edinburgh Declaration, which we are also supportive to. And I already mentioned the upcoming CBD COP, which will adopt the new global biodiversity framework, but also the climate change COP, which the UK presidency labeled as the nature COP. So there is a lot of opportunities of bringing together those agendas. And obviously, we also are starting now the new UN decade on restoration. So this is another element which we should bring into that. And I would say that the So Green movement, as I already mentioned, for me can play a very important and very supportive role in mobilizing your profession in order to help us in making that those nice strategies that we develop in Brussels, that we also have support from member states and many organizations out, that they are kind of outlined and outlaid on the ground. And this is where you have a very important role to play, to make sure that we will have, in the way that we shape our landscape, have more biodiversity, have more pollinators, have less invasive species, have less gray and more green areas. I count very much on you on this one. So this is all I wanted to say in the time that was here. On the slide, you have some links to some web pages, also where we have collected a number of experiences on nature-based solutions and other elements I mentioned in my presentation. I can also copy and paste them into the chat, so you have the direct access to them. Thank you very much again, and I'm looking forward to this symposium.
Stefan, thank you very much for your presentation. We are talking about a very urgent problem. Biodiversity loss is really a huge problem. And you have shown us what kind of results there could be if we do not act against it. We see very concrete plans within this strategy. So we really welcome the urban aspect in it. We really welcome the aspect of bottom-up approach, so that really people can join, that specialists can join in helping to create the right solutions. We are very glad that there is also budget involved, so that we can create these nature-based solutions in order to solve this problem. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to work together, and I'm very happy with the kind words that you give towards So Green to join in this movement. So I was wondering, can we join the city accord?
Well, I think the idea was that it's cities to join the city accord. But I don't know, to be honest. I will go back to you and provide you in the chat a reply to your questions. But my understanding that it was mainly representatives of local authorities of cities that were supposed to join the accord, but I will find out.
Okay, thank you very much. It's great to create a partnership together. Stefan Leiner, thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go then to the roof, the green roof. Let's see what kind of opportunities we have on buildings. And so I'd like to give the floor to the next speaker, which is Dusty Gedge. He is the president of the European Green Roof Federation. Dusty, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm just about to share my screen.
Yes, that's perfect. Dusty, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
If you give me a nod, yeah. So I'm here to talk about the European Federation and what work we do across Europe. I'm hoping you can see that I've changed the slide. I've had problems this week. Can you see a map of Europe? Can you see a map of Europe?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's these are all my federation members. Our Scandinavian Association is combined with Denmark, Sweden, and Finland and Norway, and they're associations of industry, research stations, and cities. And we work towards making standards and norms and codes of practice for green roofs and walls across Europe. And we support innovative research into technical and approaches to green roofs and walls. And we're very, very active in a number of Horizon 2020 projects. And the most important thing is, though, 74% of citizens in Europe live in cities. And therefore, delivering green space in cities is very, very important for people who live in the continent. And we have a number of things that are happening because of climate change, increased heat waves. This is from the European Environment Agency. We have increased urban floods. There's a series there. Copenhagen, Vienna, Bolzano and Lisbon have all suffered intense summer storms, which have led to flooding. And green walls can help cool the city down. You can see at the top there in London, this is a vertical rain garden, which is storing rainwater, and that helps with flash flooding. And there's some new innovative approaches going on in Vienna with our Austrian association to actually use native flora in these green walls. And obviously, in terms of heat waves, green roofs can actually reduce the urban heat island effect and we can combine solar with green roofs to make renewable energy. And currently, especially in the Netherlands and in Belgium, there's a lot of work going on through EU money on looking at how blue roofs can store even more rainwater in intense summer storms and yet deliver green space. My personal work has been involved in biodiversity and green roofs for 20 years. And I want to highlight the fact that our federation is very, very collaborative. I flew to Switzerland in 2000 and met Dr. Stefan Beniasen, and we started a whole wave of processes transforming how green roofs could be better designed for biodiversity. And this has led to guidance. We've written some guidance in the UK, which builds on the UK-Swiss collaboration. And this has now actually been taken forward by our German association for the German-speaking world over there, the BUGG, which is our German association. And I just listened to Mr. Liner and quickly put in, I believe that certainly at Green Roofs, we can help restore and transform in terms of the EU biodiversity strategy. And I just want to show you some pictures. This is my work in London. Well, my association's work in London, actually bringing real landscapes for biodiversity into the heart of a major city like London. We also work at a policy level. I helped produce a policy in London, which I know when I've sat at the Commission, people have celebrated some of the work of the Greater London Authority. But also, there's a lot of policy work that my federation is doing in Austria, in Czech, certainly in Czech. The association has helped to influence how the Czech government gives incentives for green roofs. And a number of our associations are working with their national authorities on new policies to get more green roofs up. And I just want to highlight a report that I wrote, which was my federation got sponsorship from the Mayor of London. And it's not just about London, it's about actually, there's a league table of European cities in there, and it celebrates Rotterdam, Basel, Linz, and a number of European cities, which is available from that website there. We're also looking at innovative ways. This is, again, an inspiration that I took from Switzerland, how we can actually use green roofs to create wetland habitat, which is an important part of biodiversity in urban areas. And I took that idea, put it on the Victoria and Albert Museum, and my Scandinavian Federation came over to London. And within 2 years, they had created this series of wetland pools down in Malmo in Sweden. We're also looking at how we can innovate to create specific habitat for interesting species. This is actually a solar green roof, which happens to be in North London, but there's a rare butterfly in the United Kingdom. It's actually quite rare across much of Northern Europe, which actually, after this roof was put in, you can see wind and sunshade, the small blue butterfly created a colony. So we can do a lot of things by combining technologies to deliver the EU biodiversity strategy. Also, we've got a big movement coming through on retrofitting and refurbishment. And I can only focus on my work. I know there's a lot of work in Czech going on in this. This is one of the largest districts in London where there's planned to retrofit 6,000 square meters of green roofs to help London Borough Tower Hamlets to go to carbon neutral. And this is just 1 year. And in this, we're trying to combine all of the things that I've spoken about: solar panels, wetlands, and extensive green roofs for biodiversity. And once these goes in, we will be sharing this with our association members to show how maybe retrofitting could happen across Europe to deliver these things. Also, there's the waste and carbon agenda. My colleagues in Portugal were funded by the EU to look at how they could use cork waste to create a new drainage board. And for me, as a bird watcher, the cork forest is one of the most important habitats in the European Union, and it's particularly unique to Southern Europe and Turkey. And by using cork on green roofs, we're helping to support the cork forest of Portugal, Spain, and Italy. I'm also in London with a number of colleagues looking at some materials that currently are only produced in the United Kingdom from waste materials, but they could be produced anywhere in Europe if we can get the right model in place. that actually in their process of production, they embed carbon so we could potentially create carbon negative green roofs, which deliver all the other benefits for green roofs. We're also doing some work on digital stuff. There is a company in the UK which has been doing a contract for the European Satellite Agency to look at assessing green roofs for biodiversity and for retrofit potential. And also our colleagues in Green Pass in Vienna, they were funded by the EU about 6-7 years ago. And now they've got this very sophisticated modeling, which includes green roofs to show how we can make better developments using vegetation and soil. And finally, because of COVID, I thought I'd focus on health and well-being. This is a green roof in Berlin on social housing. And very often green roofs are separated from people. This is a wildlife roof in London, and the people in front have only ever been on this roof when I do a tour on it, yet they work in this building. And I think what I want to see more of, and my colleagues, is that people have access to these spaces, whether they're formal gardens or just wild places that they could sit at lunchtime or at the weekend in a residential block. And if we recognise that roofs can provide access to nature and green space, then we're likely to get more of these put up in our cities across Europe. And I always end up with this. In 1999, this was the most sustainable retail store in the world, and it was built on some land. It's 21 years ago. Last year, in 2019, IKEA, big European retail company, destroyed that building and built the most sustainable retail store in 2019. And so I like to say, what will be the most sustainable retail store in 2041? And hopefully it will be something which is green, delivering biodiversity, and also allowing people to enjoy green space. There's World Green Roof Day, which all my Federation members will be taking part in, which comes on June the 6th. And there'll be videos in all our association languages celebrating green roofs in Europe. And we must remember that Europe has the leading green roof industry companies in the world. Thank you very much.
Dusty, thank you very much for your inspiring presentation. What I hear is that you plead for multifunctional use of roofs, and there's a lot of potential, I think, in cities that we can use for that. So what is your opinion on the renovation wave? What can we do about that?
I think one of the problems has been incentives in various countries, if we can get finance there. And to me, normally finance, I have to be a bit long-winded, if normally the finance comes from stormwater, but we need to look at how carbon, biodiversity, and stormwater and well-being can be sort of almost given some kind of fiscal value, so that actually cities who are, it's not easy to get money, but cities can actually find the finance to deliver that. And I think the carbon credit is interesting. Certainly Rotterdam and Amsterdam and Paris have provided funds from their own city coffers to actually do renovation. But I think the renovation wave in the EU and hopefully in the UK can look at how we can find new mechanisms to deliver this whole scale.
Yeah, because I think it's very important if we're looking at the heat stress in cities, for example, there we can use the roofs, of course, to cool cities. But it's also very important to see the context of the building, that you're also looking at what is the environment of this building. Can we also take some measures to make it there green and to prevent heat or maybe too much water up there?
Yeah.
Also, Dusty, another question. I forgot to mention the green facades in my introduction to you. We see them coming up now more and more. Do you think that there should be more scientific research to green walls and the possibilities that they have in the urban area?
I think there's been a lot of research, but I think there could be more. I think the one that I highlighted in my talk was actually we need to look at green walls as less as the aesthetics, but more about how they can store rainwater and do other things. Certainly in Vienna, they're now looking at putting transparent solar panels in front of the vegetation, which is quite innovative. And I think we need to see the green walls as less dare I say, horticultural bling is the English word,
Yeah.
and more really sustainable.
Okay, and I heard a question in the chat. Somebody asked, are there no trees on the roofs?
Actually, there are trees on roofs. I just suddenly went, no, I didn't put a picture of a green roof with trees on. Yeah, we get into a different scale there because you need the structural capacity. And certainly in a retrofit situation, perhaps on a multi-story car park, you could have trees. But on the vast majority of retrofit roofs, it's highly unlikely you'd have the statics to allow trees. But there are lots of examples of trees and bushes and shrubs and gardens on roofs all across Europe.
Yeah, so there are lots of opportunities to make roofs greener. Dusty, thank you very much for your presentation and the ideas that you gave us for greening roofs and greening facades. And then I'd like to go to our next speaker, because outdoors we can make green areas, but indoors we can do it as well. So our next speaker is Pierre Darmet from France, and he can explain to us how we can make indoor greenery also beneficial for our health and indoor climate. Pierre, the word is for you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you today. We are very delighted in the name of the board of ELO and especially in the name of our chairman, Mr. Benoît Pellerio. I will share my screen, maybe full screen. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it okay for you?
Yes,
yeah.
We see it. Yeah, thank you.
I hope I will be short enough, but we prepared 3 parts for this presentation. One about the issues, not too long. The second one about in and out. You said we can welcome plants inside the buildings, but we think definitely there is a continuum between in and out. And then a tool to engage all the shareholders, the stakeholders of the projects to be part of the movement. So the title of the presentation is From Biodiversity, which is a necessity, to biophilia, and both of it can create value for the citizens, for the cities, and also for the companies we represent. We talk about Green Deal, but the main issue is how to welcome life in this deal. Green is interesting, but as Dusty said, if people get involved and get experiences, we can make something very valuable. So a short word about the issues. First of all, the global warming, about 9 to 15 degrees more in the cities by 2100. It's far from today, but in cities like Paris, in about 30 years, we'll see plenty of summer with 50 degrees, which is very hard to live, and also longer and longer periods of very hot temperatures. On the other hand, biodiversity loss is real in terms of species. As Stefan Leiner said, we have 1 million species which will certainly, no doubt, disappear out of 8 millions living now on the earth. And more of that, the numbers are also decreasing in each species, including very common species. So about 70% of the invertebrates, the insects in Germany, during a very short period. Climate, biodiversity, they are not now completely linked. We deal with climate till 8 times more than biodiversity loss in the general medias. Whereas the scientific publications are equal. So we have a matter with biodiversity, but also 8 times more opportunities to show that biodiversity is a very big issue as much as climate, and how to link it. For instance, with the mixing carbon approach and biodiversity approach on a city and also on a building. You can see here the figure showing in brown climate change occurrences in English language medias all around the world, and biodiversity in green. The first pick is on the Rio summit in '92, and then climate has been growing, but not biodiversity. So we have to talk and talk more about this topic. And we can link both of them globally, but also locally, for instance, with nature-based solutions, which Stefan quoted a bit earlier, from 4 to 8 degrees less in a place which is green, with living plants, with living soil and water going through it. It can make a freshness into cities. We know it, we have to do now. This is an example of a place which combines passive and active effects of refreshness thanks to plants, soil, and water. So these are the issues. Now let's talk about plants and inside and outside the buildings, why it is very important. When we make a plea for plants, we make a plea for life. Why? There are several hypotheses according to scientists. One of the most well-known now is biophilia, which means that we have a genetically determined attractiveness, affinity for natural world, being completely living or imitating life. On the other hand, we have a very big issue, which is the extinction of experiences of nature. We can live near a park, but we don't have physical link with nature and with life. So we have to try to reconnect or to connect people with plants, animals, and also the cycles of life. We live more than 80% of our time inside buildings. So this means that interior landscaping is not only decoration, but it can be a tool to reconnect people to life. And what is very important, we live disconnected from nature, but we need some mediators, some links to be more close to living items of our environment. And gardeners, for instance, can be one of those mediators. They care for the plants when they maintain it. And while doing this, they talk with people in a company, in a retail park, everywhere. And they share tips. And when you do workshop, they teach something to the general public, which is more easily connected with plants. So this figures, I think, very important. Gardeners, when they maintain also a link between people and plants. And this link is very important for social link inside communities, in the companies, in the buildings, but also in a district and the whole city. And workshops, DIY applied to plants, it is more and more popular. And if you do it in a community garden outdoor or within a company indoor, you can make strong links within people without any barrier, also connect them more and more with life. And this is very important. Why? For health. because we always talk about well-being, but the definition of health is a total mental, physical, and social well-being. And there are more and more scientific research in France, especially, Cocorico, which explain how nature areas inside the city can help people to feel better. So the continuum, what we think is that indoor and outdoor, it's the same surroundings, the same ecosystem. And I will show it with some pictures very quickly. This is a design of a rest area. People are distanced, social distancing because of the COVID. And what people say in the companies, they want to feel like home and all together sometimes. They feel this is lacking in their daily life now. So rest areas are good. You can do something with plants inside, but also outside, as you can see in this picture. Inside, outside. The same here. In the same building, there is a warm atmosphere thanks to plants where you can connect physically inside, and also outside you can do the same. And each form, each shape has a function. This is not only decorative. Well, you can be also more like in an imagination, a dream, like these floating trees inside, outside. This is the same, a bit different view. Getting in touch with plants, living an experience. One of the examples is kitchen garden. So you can do it outside with corporate gardens, for instance, or public corporate gardens, and also inside the buildings, thanks to technology. But also the way you maintain the places is very important. Stefan was dealing with pesticides, no more pesticides in France. Inside you can do biological control, and outside you can welcome wildlife, as Dusty always reminds us. The people are a bit different, indoor, outdoor. These are not the same skills, and at ELO we try to show people that indoor plants need very specific skills, which is very important to get more and more people involved in our industry. Now, just to finish with a tool which we developed in France to engage people in nature in the city movement. I made a research on the internet, on Google, looking for two different kind of words. On the one hand, real estate professionals, and you can see the pictures, very formal, in glass buildings, no life. And on the other hand, the landscape contractor, no computer, plenty of green, very beautiful grass, not very much life. And those pictures show us that they don't live in the same world. And I could have done the same with ecologists, with biodiversity scientists, and you can see that those people are not fully connected. So we built an association gathering all of these people, which name is International Biodiversity and Property Council. And we have city planners, promoters, investors, real estate companies, landscaping companies, I mean design, but also contracting companies, ecology associations, scientists, and the city governments all together to develop actions with, for instance, here a charter and also a label, a frame to help to drive projects on different criteria, including ecological potential of buildings and their surroundings, but also now districts. And on the other hand, the uses, the way people live and interact with nature. This is the smiley you can see on the right of the picture. And the hedgehog is for the wildlife potential. Some pictures of real projects developed from the beginning of this association in 2014. They are very different from offices, social buildings for housing, retail places, etc., etc. And we try to develop it abroad. And we think if we work all together, we can make something very strong and give value and attract investment to develop more green areas. And I would add just something. Wildlife in the city doesn't care if green space is public or private. And the first lockdown showed us that people need common places. Either they are public or private, they don't care. In France, parks, green areas were closed during the first lockdown. And we saw very clearly what plenty of researchers, professionals, and city planners were feeling is that people need places to walk, to have a rest, to feel nature and to feel together, even though they have a good distance. And after the politics change and now it's open. We live in more and more dense cities with buildings higher and higher. We need to finance collectively public, private shareholders to make green open areas for everyone. So one word of ELO, the European Interior Landscape Organization. You can see Benoit, he's the chairman, is located in Brussels. And one word about Gali, the company I represent in France, which is a diversified company about nature. That's it for me. Thank you.
Pierre, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. You stated so beautifully, saying that we should welcome life and that we should reconnect to nature. And therefore I was so triggered when you showed the differences between real estate and gardeners. If we are looking at let's say, the solutions that we are looking for now, for example, climate matters in buildings, they are easily choosing for technical solutions and not so easily for nature-based solutions. What do you think, Pierre? How can we combine those two worlds, the technical solutions and the nature-based solutions?
I'm not this is a very important question. To attract investors to do it, we need to prove the benefits of nature. That's what we were wondering the last 10 years. But now we have those proofs and we know how to make responsible marketing, not saying, let's put green, this will be better. It's not, it's a bit more complicated. We have models, how to measure indicators, especially for health. And it's good to promote it now. And I think green finance needs to be more conscious, educated about how the living works. The word ecosystem is very popular to describe economic figures.
Yeah.
So it's starting this movement. People can, whatever their job, to understand that living things are not white or black, but a bit more complex.
Yep.
So if we help people to get involved with the experience, the practical experience, also in places like real estate companies, also for banks, etc. People will also be part of the movement personally. And if we give them the knowledge of how it is working, with the tools, the indicators to measure the effects, we can put a value and maybe change it.
Yeah, and that will help. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Pierre. This was a very good answer. I think that we must link it to each other, get involved in nature, and bring it further together. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So another aspect of the green solutions is about the circular economy. And our next speaker will tell something about that. I will give the floor to Elwin de Vink of Donker Design. Elwin, the floor is yours.
I have to unmute.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Screen one, share, and then I have to switch. So now you see my presentation.
Yes, we do. Yep.
I was very impressed by the last presentation. By the way, I think it's really was spot on, and thank you very much for that. I was really inspired. My name is Elwin de Vink. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Donker Landscape Design, but I'm also the Transition Manager, Circularity and Sustainability of the Donker Group. And I'd like to tell you something about our role as a landscaping company in today's world. As mentioned in other presentations, our living environment and our quality of life is seriously threatened. We see this due to urban heating by flat roofs, but also the urban heating effect due to excessive pavements. We see more and more long periods of drought, followed by increasing number of floodings. We also see a decrease in biodiversity. We think it's time for new, smart and sustainable solutions. I think as a landscaping company, we have a unique position to make a great contribution in solving so many current problems. An example of the benefits of green. When building the Laurentius Hospital, there was a great effort putting into green for various benefits. This has resulted in an increase of 2 million real estate value to the surrounding area. A minus of 400 days spent less by patients in the hospital due to the view of on green. A minus of 2.7 full-time equivalent by hospital staffing, so less sickness, but also 110 tons of CO2 reduction by shade and wind by trees and plantings. And overall, a minus of 2.3 degrees warming of the area due to the green put in this project. So I think this makes very clear that green has a great benefit in a lot of areas. The Donker Group wants to be a 100% circular company in 2035. And I'd like to take you for a quick look behind the scenes and how we're achieving this goal. First, a little bit about our company. It's a family business. It's founded in 1961. We are one of the top 3 landscaping companies in the Netherlands. We focus currently mainly on sustainable and circular indoor and outdoor space. We have a turnover of approximately 90 million euros. And we try to do a lot of integral projects. So as well as the design as the landscaping from 3 separate divisions. So the company exists of 3 divisions. It's actually Donker landscape design. So this is the landscaping, the architectural side of the company. Then we have the Donker Groen, that's the landscape contractor side, and we have a special division for the interior plantings. As you know, the circular economy the European Common Goal is a Paris-proof 2050. So we want to be circular at 2050. The Donker Group has set the bar at 2035 because we think 2050 is a little bit too far away, and it's really urgent to start as soon as possible. We use sustainability in our company as a guiding principle, and we do this by 4 rules. The first is sustainability is not a product, but it's an attitude. The second is sustainability needs to be a lasting continuity for our own company. We need our stakeholders to join in a common goal. Because if the stakeholders are not joining us, then in the end, it's not working. And the fourth is we proactively develop sustainable concepts, products, and services. The Sustainable Development Goals are embedded in our company vision and in our plans. And we use 4 main principles in our daily work for decision making. And these 4 are: don't bring substances from the earth crust into the environment more and faster than they can process. Don't bring more and faster foreign substances into the environment than they can process. Don't do things that limit people in fulfilling their basic needs, and don't break down nature faster than the time it takes to recover. And by using these 4 simple work principles, it is for everyone in our company very easy to make decisions on multiple levels. We also use a backcasting method in gaining to ensure that we are on track towards our goals in 2035. We do this by making plans for every 5 years where we stand on the different goal we have set. In this way, we can measure and monitor our standings in time. As you can see, we do this on various topics, from the use of circular materials to electrifying our machines and the stimulation of the use of organically grown plants. A question we get, because we are a very big company in the Netherlands, is how do you get people within your company to change? Because not everybody is already on board. And we think this is the wrong question, because if leading by example, we would like to ask the question, who wants to join? And if people don't want to join, then maybe they no longer should be a part of our company. So we tried by leading by example, and we try to bring everybody in, but in the end, it's the question, who wants to join? And intrinsic motivation is key, we think. So how do we do things? One of the things we do which helps us in measuring and gaining these goals is measuring of our landscaping plans. We do a quick scan, which gives us data on the current situation regarding sustainability and circularity. And these results present themselves like a labeling of an energy label. Together with our clients, we then use this data to set goals to make improvements. In a lot of cases, this results in a series of measures to be taken over the following years. This results in the end in a certification by an independent company, which is a little bit similar to the BREEAM certification. I'd like to show you some examples of the impact of green we did in the last few years. In 2019, we designed and developed the first circular rooftop garden. It's called Circle. It's in Amsterdam in a very dense city area. This project was a great but difficult journey into a new world, a new circular world, but also a very big success, which led to the Elca Award and the Uli Award in 2020 for Most Sustainable Real Estate Project. In the harbor area of Amsterdam, we designed and developed a circular rooftop garden called Pontkade, where we used old materials from the harbor area. The plantings we used are mostly indigenous species to stimulate the local biodiversity. We also see a great interest in nature-inclusive buildings, where we transform vertical facades into green walls for stimulating biodiversity. We more and more work together with architects, so landscape and buildings are blended together as one. This working together in a common goal leads to a lot of innovations. There's also a lot to be gained in transforming the business parks into sustainable and green areas. In this example, the city council wanted to replace the sewage canals, but it cost 10 million euros. But the cost of disconnecting the sewage was approximately 2 million euros. So there was also a very nice stimulation in using alternative measures. So then we started in this project to use different solution of filtration as a case study. This will be monitored by students for data on which works the best. So this is now being done on this whole area for the last 2 years. Another example I want to show you is the example of change we see in the need for green spaces in the city. This was a modern park designed in the 90s on a parking garage. The green aspect is nowhere to be found. The use of the park was also minimal. We transformed the park into a water retention park, topping it off with soil so it could be transformed into a green area. We use different and diverse plantings relating to the surrounding ecology. And the result was a highly appreciated climate-proof city park in the center of the city of Eindhoven. As I stated before, I think we have a chance for a great and green future. I want to say to everybody, you can be this change, so be the change. Thank you.
Elwin, thank you very much for your presentation and the inspiring vision that you gave us on, let's say, the circular future that we have with greenery. So, as a conclusion for me, green is not only what you do, but green is what you are. And that is what you practice, so to speak. I think that's very important that we work on a vision that is think green first. Elwin, how can we achieve that people around us also think green first?
Well, I think it's very important that we need to realize that green is not a topping or a decoration, but it's a necessary asset for a sustainable solution, but it's also part of life, as said, I think, by Pierre. So the connecting to this nature again, but also understanding the high value of this green in all these different aspects I think is very important. And I think maybe we need, as association, as the different associations need to be more clear in showing everyone what these benefits are.
So that's really very important. And in the end, greens makes happy, as you stated in your presentation. So that's very important as well. And you gave me a new buzzword as well in English, because we are talking about the nature-based solutions and ecosystem services, but we can do a nature-inclusive development. And nature-inclusive is something that we see coming up now more and more. So it's really a very interesting development, which can help also to make our world greener. Elwin, thank you very much for your presentation.
Very welcome.
So our next speaker is Jan-Dieter Bruns. He's the president of the INA, and it's the nursery branch. So where do all the trees and plants come from? Jan-Dieter, do we have enough plants for the future to create this green future?
Mach mal eben das Ding da an. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, and the floor is yours, Jan-Dieter.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not a computer man, so but I
And
know
it works.
very well how to produce plants. So you
Yeah.
don't worry, there will be enough trees for the future. At the moment, to be honest, we even have an advantage of the COVID situation. So people are concentrating on their private garden, on the environment. Even local authorities spend more money in parks and greenery. So the situation, I think, in general, depending a little bit on the countries, in general, it's quite good. And so the nurseries are having a very active and good spring season. So you gave me only 50 minutes, and I have a lot of slides to show.
Yeah.
So how do we start here? I have one assistant here, and he can help me. Okie dokie.
Yes.
So
We see the presentation, Jan-Dieter.
okay, very good. Yeah, it's a pity that we cannot travel. Otherwise, we would have a glass of wine now or in the evening. I'm talking about a bit of in general. I mean, Bruns, maybe you know Bruns Nursery in Bad Zwischenahn was created 1876 by my great-grandfather. I'm now the first generation. We employ 350 people and we work all over Europe. And I start now with INA. So INA officially now is started in 1991, but in my memory, I already came with my father in the 60s, 70s. We have been traveling through Europe and meeting other nurseries. And now to INA, we have 22 European countries. And here you see the number of nurseries and the production area and the production value. This is a promotion campaign we are doing, and these are the countries working on this promotion campaign to make green more present and to make publicity for green in these different countries. So now I come to my presentation. The European nurseries, more or less in Germany, it's the case, 50% is for the private and public landscape market, and 50% of the production, and this is the other part where we don't talk too much about it this afternoon, is garden center retail market. But both markets are quite important, and both markets don't know much about each other. Garden center retail market, they believe they're the strongest, and the landscape people believe they're the strongest, but it's more or less 50% of the market. Our competitors, in my opinion, are not nurseries or not landscape architects or landscape contractors. The competitors are other branches. And it's a decision from private investors to go on holidays or to spend money for a new kitchen or a new bathroom. And these people, these three branches, by example, they understood in the past to make their niche, their production quite important and people spending money. But I think in the last 10 years, also the green industry, we learned a lot. And people now, they know how important green is. So I show you just a few slides about a modern garden center production. You see here on this picture, and I don't know if you know this from Portland, Oregon, pot and pot production, where you have a pot inside the soil and then you put a second container in this empty pot. It's a new way of producing plants for garden centers and quite effective. The loading is quite important, and the shortage of delivery. The labels are very important for the retail market and to make things happen very quickly. Here you see a modern loading dock, how you find it also in big companies or in Flora Holland or Landgard in Germany, but this is the individual nursery loading dock. What became very important to be a bit outstanding in the garden center market is to make brands. You know, Endless Summer is an introduction from America, and it's a very successful brand in Europe, and it's having its own internet appearance, and it's a big sales. Like here in Germany, For the garden center market, it's yellow, and I believe they sell around about 400,000 endless summer every year. And we have the rights for the landscape market in Germany. So this is very important, new idea, not making publicity for a brand, for a single brand. I will show you how we do this for the landscape market also in our nursery. And how to present plants inside the garden center. This is all for the garden center industry. And it's not only more production to have the best product or the cheapest product, is how to present a product and to make money with this product and how to sell it to the garden centers. Yeah, now I come to the which is more the Bruns world, is now the public and private landscape market. And so this can be the starts today. Now also in nurseries, you find specimen fruit trees. Years before you only had small trees. Now you have them in big sizes, up to 10, 12, 15, 18 years old, or old espaliered fruit trees from which have been digged out or sometimes dug out of orchards. Specimen shrubs and ornamental grasses became very important. Herbaceous plants, it's also very important. Our nurseries inside Europe, they also produce huge Phylostachys, huge bamboo. The ones on the picture have been selected for a shopping mall. On the left, it was for a private house to hide a new construction. On the right is for a big shopping mall inside in Germany. Yeah, what you also do, you saw this in France, in Paris, in the library, and then it became also more known in Germany. On the left, you see them grown, you see big pine trees, but these are nursery pine trees growing in the soil, and then you find them on the right in the project. The ones on the right, they are in Munich, and one on the truck, and they have been prepared out of the forest, and they are 60, 70 years old, and then be placed in a project inside Munich. So it's all what you can do with large specimen trees. A new idea from the nursery section is to have instant hedges. That means not growing a Capinus or Fagus or Taxus baccata as a small or individual plant, but grow them already pre-clipped, and you only put them together for a ready hedge. This is also a new idea how nurseries can be creative and having new ideas. Yeah, one other very special thing is big trees. And you know, in Europe, there are not too many nurseries having outstanding large material for the landscape architects and the landscape industry to do a real landscape design with large plants. A big thing now, since more than 10 years, is climate change. And we found out that in our nurseries, also this is a picture from our nurseries in northern Germany, we have to protect the clear stem with bamboo. That the trunk is not, the stem is not getting sunburned. Very important now, and there are also new climate trees, new varieties for this changing climate change. The other thing in nurseries now becoming very important is irrigation, less overhead irrigation, more single irrigation, and this kind of irrigation is reducing the amount of water to 1/3 of what you normally use. And also, when I can tell you from the politics in our area or from the people going around nurseries, they watch how careful you are handling water. One very important thing is logistic, to organize transport, to be able to supply a landscape contractor, like he's ordering Monday morning, that he's having the plants on Wednesday, 2 days later, on his yard or in the project. And logistic is a very important item also for the nursery sector. And then, yeah, to make ideas happen, to convince landscape architects and to give them new ideas, what's possible, and with emotions, and the presentation of plants inside the nursery became more important than before. How to present trees. These are large pine trees for individual, private or public projects. Summer supply is becoming more important, and to have plants available also in the summer. Or how to present specimen trees, or to topiaries, to shape plants, it's becoming a niche market, and to have them available. These are pruned Capinus, Bacillus fasciculata, pruned into columns. And one thing which is very important is quality. Not only to produce these plants, but do them right and do them in high quality. See, it's the same here. You know, this is also a picture from our nursery. This a whole hedge is gone to hide a new industry building not far from Munich. So, and the customer came, he was looking to hide something, and he bought the whole row. Or here you find pyramids of Capinus, Bacillus fasciculata. Yeah, the other idea is Pinus pinea, which is not hardy. You find Pinus pinea in Italy, but they are not hardy in Austria or in northern part of Europe or even in Russia. So we are doing this, or not only in our nursery, but also other nurseries. We we take Pinus sylvestris or Pinus nigra, and to give them the pinea look. Or this is Capinus bacillus clipped into boxes. So you have to have ideas and to follow and to give architects and follow the demand of the people to give architects new ideas and to make their design happen. Very important is, I told you, is summer supply. This system here with airports is coming from Australia, and so you can supply plants again in the summer. And individual plants, Parotia on the right, or Amelantia, big fruit trees, you know, to present them in these wooden boxes, to give them more value. I had this idea, and these wooden boxes came from America. We worked a lot with Disney, and Disney, they employ people, they call them their design office. And with Paul Comstock, he was the manager doing most of the design for Disney in Paris. He's saying everything we gave a special word to is with Walt Disney attached. So and then when you have these, we call them, you know, these plants, they get a special label, the Masterpiece Collection. And because it's not Walt Disney, we took the name of my grandfather by Johann Bruns. So to give extra value to the plant, these wooden boxes, they are costing 150 euros. So, but they give this extra value to this Amelantia, and they look much better than just having them in a plastic container. Or this is endless summer and larger sizes, or big aces. Now I'm coming to references. This is, by the way, in Bad Zwischenahn, on the lake of Bad Zwischenahn, and the German and also the INA nurseries. Now I have to say the European nurseries, they are exporting Europe-wide. And so you find plants all over Europe. Can be a Japanese garden somewhere with plants from Japan, like this Taxus cuspidata is imported from Japan and then grown here for a while, and then it's in a private garden. This is Michael Stich. He's a Wimbledon winner, his private garden in Hamburg. And he had a garden book, or his wife had a garden book from Belgium. And so she wanted a Belgium landscape design, but with plants which have been produced, let's say, in Europe. But government is very important as well. You know, in front of the new German parliament buildings, they planted new trees. Or this is the idea, the architect who did this in front of the government building in Berlin, he was in Pistoia, and he was in Montecatini in a spa town, and he saw in the evening, he saw these terracotta boxes. So this is how the idea came, was a bit on a rise and horizon. Sorry, yeah. They are showing me my time, so I still have 1 minute 20. I will continue. So this is Hamburg Harbor City, very important what you can do with trees, and private gardens in London, but everything, even also in London, has to be high quality. Otherwise, it's not possible to export. Or for the Olympic Stadium here in London, this Catherine dog. In London, this is a golf course in Moscow. There was no tree before. It's a landscape design. They imported all the trees. This is City Green in Moscow, big trees for the inside the city of Moscow. Here you see in Denmark a renovated alley of Telia Intermedia, or Malmö, Sweden. So there's a lot of possibilities. Villandry Castle in France to restore, to replant these Taxus baccata. Or here you see, they at Villandry, they now restore with better boxes, which is a selection from Belgium, which is tolerant to the fungus. Disneyland, 92 opening was a huge project where they needed a lot of plants to make it happen. Or the big avenue trees in Europe has to be planted with large trees here in France with platanus. This is a project in Luxembourg with boxwood and platanus, or Bratislava. The trees, with trees you can make landscape happen, and or in Austria, very important. At the moment, a bit less now, but in the last 5 years, there was a lot of trees going to Turkey because there was a good demand in Turkey for trees. At the moment, the economy is a bit more difficult, but also the European nursery supplied plants to Turkey, by example, to this shopping mall in Istanbul. We spoke about roof gardening. This is, I think, one of the most spectacular projects done in Germany. This is 8 kilometers, Capinus, Bacillus, on a big shopping and conference building in Düsseldorf. And all these Capinus has been prepared for a period of 3 years in a nursery. This is in Bad Zwischenahn, and clipped and special soil, and then they have been installed inside the building. So plants, you can see, are very important all over Europe and with European nurseries, and the demand is good. Thank you very much. And I'm still in time. I just got the information.
Thank you very much, Jan-Dieter. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well, you show us so many opportunities with trees and shrubs and flowers, so it's really good to see. I was really triggered by your example of the urban forest with the pine trees, because that's also something of a new opportunity, I guess. I was wondering, Jan-Dieter, if I see the policies made for the coming years. In Canada, for example, they want to plant 1 billion trees. In Europe, we want to plant 2 billion trees. So there's a lot of tree nurturing to do in the coming years, let's say, on planning. But on the other hand, do you also see that there's now much more demand to plants which are related with climate, with biodiversity and health matters? Do you see that the variety in your nurseries is changing on that point?
Sorry, I have to, it's my son, he wants to reach me. We do these climate trees now, we call them. And I mean, the trees you are mentioning, planting in Canada, or we have the same in Europe, are more ceilings, the forest trees. That's 2, 3, 4 years old. But the ones we are supplying are bigger trees. They are between 10 and 15 years old, 20, 25, 25, 30 circumference mostly for urban landscaping. And there is a change, you are right, there's a change to Cleditia, to Sophora, to Liquidamba, Parrotia, different varieties, and a bit less like Quercus rubor, the normal oak. Quercus cerris is increasing. So the nurseries, we call them, in our nursery inside, we call them climate trees or future trees. And these future trees, there's more demand in it, and also the nurseries are more concentrating on these new varieties. But in a nursery is also risky. I mean, the period from a seedling to adult tree is 10 years, and to follow this demand and to be always on time and not having an overproduction, having the right plant, it's not always easy.
Yeah, it needs some serious planning, I gather.
Yeah, what we can do is we can shorten that we buy already 20-25 circumference tree. When we feel that there is a demand in larger plants and climate trees, then we don't start with 8, 10, 10, 12, then we start already with 20, 25, 25, 30, and then we have them ready after 3-4 years.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. Jan-Dieter, thank you very much for your presentation.
One question, how many people are following this conference? I forgot to ask.
At Marie?
At the moment, 62.
62 people.
But it
60.
62, but it's changing
Very good.
all the time. Yes.
And give my best regards to Marie.
Okay, I will do.
I like her a lot.
Thank
and
you very much.
She's a very good secretary for Elca and for So Green.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Because I like to introduce our next speaker. When we're talking about nature-based solutions, there is something that we can do in partnership. And so our next speaker will explain something about that. I will give the floor to Chantal van Ham of the IUCN. Chantal, are you in the broadcast?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, you're there.
Hello,
yes,
Egbert.
hello. Good to see you.
Hello. Nice to see you too, and thank you very much for the invitation for this inspiring exchange.
You're welcome.
So, can you see my screen?
I see you in the screen, but I guess that you're trying to put in the presentation.
Yes, it says on my screen that I'm sharing it.
It's not yet
So
there.
I'm not sure if that's working. Okay.
I see in the chat that it's working, Chantal.
Okay.
Yep.
Then I will start. So yes, thank you very much to you, Egbert, and to the European Landscape Contractors Association for inviting me to this event. And I've been listening with great interest to all the presentations just before, as it really shows how many opportunities we have, especially now in the context of the European Green Deal, which really creates so much more awareness of the value of nature, and in particular what we as ICN work on, protecting biodiversity and working towards reducing the ecosystem degradation. IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, is, as you may know, one of the world's oldest environmental organizations. We were founded in 1948, and we have worldwide around 1,400 member organizations, both governments and NGOs. And we work together to protect nature and to ensure the sustainable use of natural resources. And we also have a global network of experts, more than 14,000, who work on different aspects of nature, including the red list of species, but also protected areas management, nature education and communication, environmental law, and also economic and social related aspects of nature. So we see a great complementarity with the work that you do as landscape contractors, planners, architects, are key partners for us to protect and restore our landscapes and public spaces for people and for nature, and to create awareness on how integrated landscape planning and urban development approaches can bring nature closer to people. So in my presentation, I'm pleased to share with you some examples of IUCN's work in Europe, and also the work of some of our partners who are really pioneers to help implement these nature-based solutions. At the moment, I can't see my presentation, so I'm not sure if I can move it forward.
I see the title page.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So here are two examples of projects that we're currently working on, both funded by the Horizon 2020 program of the European Commission, which has invested tremendously in nature-based solutions projects over the last years. The first one is called Network Nature. That is a European platform for nature-based solutions that we work on together with ICLEI, OPLA, Biodiversa, and Steinweiss. And it presents a resource for nature-based solutions, creating opportunities for cooperation, providing evidence and best practices. And it also really helps to bring together all that knowledge that is being generated through this community of nature-based solutions projects. But we also try to work together with other actors who may not always be that deeply involved yet. And there we have identified in particular forest and landowners, also water managers, the finance and infrastructure sector, and the public and the media at large, to also really show how many benefits there are in upscaling nature-based solutions. And that links, of course, very clearly to all the presentations that we've seen before, as it's about creating new partnerships for action. It's about synthesizing knowledge and making it available in such a way that it becomes usable for many different people, practitioners, politicians, city planners, and decision makers. So we also really hope to work together with all of you through Network Nature. Another project that we work on is called Grow Green. That is a project in a group of 4 that works towards implementing nature-based solutions for climate and water resilience in cities. And we work in this project with Manchester, who is the coordinator of this project, with Brest, with Modena, Valencia, Wrocław in Poland, and Wuhan is our affiliated city in China. And we do different capacity building activities, and we help these cities to develop their strategies and nature-based solutions implementation projects. But we also try to connect with others to share all the knowledge and experiences that we're gaining. So Manchester, for example, in this project has now completed its nature-based solutions project in West Gorton neighborhood, which now has a climate resilient park. They call it the park that drinks water, or Sponge Park. And that is basically the final step in a process of 100 million investment in that region of Manchester for regeneration. So this park is a great place for the neighborhood citizens to go to and to enjoy, for children to play, but it also has a very important role in climate change, as it absorbs water and it helps to also cool a bit the air. So it is really a place with multiple functions. So as you may know, IUCN has launched last year its so-called global standard on nature-based solutions, which is a way to guide users on how nature-based solutions can be applied and to set benchmarks for progress. This has been done in consultation with stakeholders from over 100 countries through IUCN's network. And we also hope that this will help to upscale the implementation of these solutions and to help funders and investors and decision makers to make nature-based solutions really part of their decisions, and to really also look at the different trade-offs that we of course see when we look into implementation. And here on this slide you can see the different criteria that we're using for this standard. And one of the main reasons for us to do this is also really to avoid that the concept is being misused, because for example, if a tree planting project would use only a single non-native species, it could result in poor soil biodiversity. It could also make it costly to increase biodiversity in the future. So we hope that this can help to increase all these different elements of what we consider essential to nature-based solutions, so biodiversity, but also the economy and societal benefits, and in that way creating resilience. We have also created with this standard a governing body that will revise the criteria and also adapt it to the needs as we continue to work with these solutions. And I would also like to highlight now some examples of the work that some of IUCN's members and partners in Europe are doing. And I think, they also give some linkages to the work that you do as an association across Europe. So one, of course, I think is especially important now in these times of COVID, our education and bringing it outdoors. Traditionally, of course, universities and schools are the places where really our thinking is shaped and our understanding and perceptions that may ultimately lead to change in society. And as these benefits of nature are now more and more clear because of the COVID-19 situation, there is a possibility for us to strengthen that connection between education and between people and nature, which is so essential to protect what we have, but also to achieve our objectives for the Green Deal at large, and in particular to help the young generation to reconnect with nature, as one of our previous speakers talked about biophilia, this innate connection that we have, and that is really essential for our health and well-being. So yeah, bringing students into nature as part of their schooling is really an opportunity to value nature, because essentially, yeah, we will only really be able to protect what we know and what we learn to value. So in making students wonder and have that curiosity and to create that love for nature starts really early on. And of course, there's not so much new about greening schoolyards. And I think back in ancient civilizations, yeah, the Greek already sat beneath trees and were inspired by nature. But of course, we know that many schools, in particular in Scandinavia, have already promoted for many years schooling lessons outside. So IUCN also has an initiative that is called Nature for All, which is a global movement to inspire love for nature. And it is, yeah, really a place where you can find partners, but also a lot of information about how you can, for example, do these types of schooling activities that connect children with nature, but also many other nice, inspiring videos and case studies and examples that can help to, yeah, guide some new ideas for action. And yeah, part of this is also the Children and Nature Network, which has done some studies that also really show how important this connection with nature is when it comes to the mental skills and yeah, literacy of children and students. So yeah, we really would welcome you to take a look at these great resources and also inspiring examples that are being developed nowadays. Another example I wanted to highlight is from Bug Life in the UK, who have launched a new project that addresses this dramatic loss of plant diversity that we have been seeing over the last years across the UK. So they call it Wildflower Superhighways, and it has been quite some years in the making. What they have done is they mapped potential routes for insects superhighways, and that has been, yeah, taking quite some time and also been quite costly. So what you see in this map on the left is not a road or a railway network, but these lines propose the wildlife corridors that will join these dots between fragmented insect habitats and can help, maybe in a small way, to reverse this decline of UK wildflower meadows. Actually 97% has been lost over since the 1930s in England and Wales. So these highways are like stepping stones rather than continuous corridors. And it's if only 10% of that network would come into life, that would be enough to give these UK's insects a boost and a route of habitats that is now a lot under pressure also due to climate change. So yeah, it will restore connectivity, and it can also show that these types of regeneration and connectivity actions can work. I also wanted to give a little bit of attention to soil, which is often, of course, invisible to us, but so essential for life as it supports 98% of biodiversity, provides the majority of our food, filters all of our drinking water, stores most active carbon than all of our air, forests, and seas combined. So there has been a report presented during the last Convention on Biological Diversity by our colleagues from the Nature Conservancy, which is called Nature in the Urban Century. And it says that by 2050, we will urbanize an area larger than Colombia, so approximately 1.2 million square kilometers. Which means that many growing cities in the world are facing problems with waste from industry, pollution of the soils, and also drinking water resources. Of course, also erosion resulting from large-scale deforestation and agriculture activities. So dried out soil can really quickly be washed away. So when countries lose their topsoil, they may eventually also lose their capacity to produce food. So looking to find solutions for preventing this loss of plant and animal species and soil biodiversity is really essential to restore the balance. And we may not always think about that when we are in cities and in urban areas, but yeah, it is something that really deserves attention in any of the actions that we are going to take in the coming years. And it also should be really part of all the decisions and investments that we're going to make, whether it's for a city, a national government, or for business and society at large. Um, so for cities, of course, investing in soil can also provide many benefits to slow water flow, to control erosion, and to also improve biodiversity and to improve the soil that trees need to survive in cities. But of course, we know that there are many degraded and polluted soils. And I found an example from New York, which had an area that had a lot of lead contamination. But they launched a program called Pure Soil, New York City, that helps to clean these contaminated community gardens by using native soils, but also reducing the costs of transporting these excavated materials elsewhere. And this new soil is provided free of charge to the community-based organizations by a so-called New York City Clean Soil Bank. And that is soil that basically exists for more than 10,000 years, deposited by the glaciers. So I'm happy also to share more details on this with you, but I thought it shows how important this is and that every city probably may benefit from such type of ideas and solutions. And then another example that I found is from Scotland. It's called 10,000 Rain Gardens, as we see, of course, that there is an increasing demand for living space in Europe's cities, and that there are difficulties in expanding cities, which means we see a lot of densification and soil sealing, which increases vulnerability to flooding and extreme precipitation, especially now we see climate change effects increasing. So sustainable urban drainage systems, so-called SUDs, are considered a good strategy to handle these stormwater runoff locally and to relieve the sewage system. And what Scotland is now promoting is a well, maybe first about these suds. So they can be done in different ways, and they can harvest rainwater by collecting it from roofs and other paved surfaces. It also is, of course, very much linked to green roofs, as we heard already before, and different types of systems linked to trees and swales can help to let water infiltrate and reduce these impacts of flooding. So for these rain gardens, there is now a new project that has planned to use these rain gardens, which are areas of plants and vegetation that absorb water and reduce that severity of the flooding, and help to also protect the rivers and waterways, to capture the rainwater and when it runs off hard surfaces, and then let it slowly be released back into these gardens. So it can be very small. It can be an area of flowers or trees and bushes in a car park or a planter box next down to a roof pipe. It can also be bigger. So this campaign for 10,000 rain gardens is now a plan that has been modeled after successful examples from Melbourne, Philadelphia, and Portland. And it aims to make that a standard method of dealing with surface water runoff, flood alleviation, and green space creation within Scotland. And Glasgow has started with some first pilots to implement those, and it's also giving some incentives to make this possible for the city and the citizens. And it also has very strong linkages to broader city plans, so the flood risk management plan, but also the adaptation strategy and the local biodiversity action plan. So there's also a guidance available, what you can do to help and to make this a reality, these rain gardens. So that brings me to my last slide. So I think, of course, there are many more fantastic examples that we can show, but I think that what is really important is that we need to do this together and really make nature part of the equation and all our actions, which of course requires effective implementation of our legislation, but also to make sure that we shift the flow of investment, both public and private financing, to those who manage and protect our natural heritage, but also are able to restore these natural functions in our urbanized areas. And that means we often need new types of partnerships. I always call them unconventional partnerships that can turn these ideas into action. And I think that the European Green Deal offers many opportunities to do this, to bring these different partners together and to look at how these nature-based solutions, models, and regenerative systems can be upscaled and finding their way. And that means that changes are needed. But we as in ICN really look forward to work on this together with Elca and all the partners through knowledge sharing and joint projects. And I look forward really to continue this exchange and conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chantal. You gave us some very practical examples on how we can work together, how we can create partnership in nature-based solutions. I think this is wonderful. If you realize that the definition of nature-based solutions is only made 10 years ago, then we are making big steps ahead already. So I think it's wonderful that that your organization, as well as with partners, which we can be, of course, can make such a beautiful projects and make these steps ahead. Chantal, thank you very much for your presentation today.
You're welcome.
So now, my dear ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that we do a very small coffee break, and we will continue the program at 3:15. So see you back soon. Welcome back at our digital conference about So Green, the Green on the Move. I hope that you had some opportunity to get some coffee or something else to drink, because we will continue our program with some very important and interesting speakers. And I'm very happy to introduce the next speaker to you, which is from the European Commission. I have Elena Wisnar-Malinovska, who is talking to us as head of the unit Adaptation to Climate Change of DG Climate Adaptation. And I'm so very happy that she is here and that she will tell us something about the strategy about climate. Elena, you're welcome. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this invitation. This is really appreciated. And I was already part of the audience for the first speeches. And I must say, it was really beautiful to see all the pictures on the PowerPoint. And I must say, I cannot match this, but let me still share my desktop with you so that I can start the presentation and make things running smoothly. So apologies, but yeah, it should go on the stream.
Yes, we see it. Yeah, it works.
Perfect. As you know, and it was clearly stated by all speakers before, we are living in a very dynamic world nowadays, in the positive and in the negative sense. And the whole economy, society, and what we cherish and care for is put, under the constraint of the increasing climate change. And whatever we do, even if we would stop all greenhouse gases emissions today, we would still see a lot of impact unfolding, and it affects everyone. Cities in the Netherlands, as villages, municipalities in Spain, or in landscapes as we know them in my country, health country, Czechia. So even in a best case scenario, really, there are impacts that are already baked in. Now, in urban areas, we know them very well. It's not just that there is a concentration of assets and population, but really there is a huge issue of paving the surfaces and so losing the sponge functions that cities would have. And actually these are the pictures that we are often confronted from and jump on us from news. So how do we adapt to the impacts that are already there? And of course it has been said with pictures. To heat waves, we should definitely use the cooling effects of green spaces, of corridors in urban areas. They are not only adapting us to climate change, but they are also beautiful, providing the security benefit. We need also to work more with the cooling drinking fountains in cities. We need to use more early warning systems that can prepare us in advance for these heat waves. Just an example of the French cities have faced 10 years ago a major heat wave that costed around 15,000 of premature deaths. And after this, hard lesson, they went into the heat waves of past years with much better and more preparation, and hence less toll on lives. Of course, in terms of flooding, we need to reduce these asphalt as we know it and introduce more of these sponge functionalities that I mentioned before. I live here in Brussels, and I must say I'm sometimes flabbergasted by some of the spatial planning projects in city in squares where it is fully non-adapted, and it really becomes a sort of heat island during summers. Nature-based solutions, that's absolutely the way to go, not only for adapting to climate change, but we know that they have a major role to play in carbon removal, so as carbon sinks. And we have seen the good example of Paris area, where already, the nature-based solutions, the green riverbanks, have actually reduced the flooding by 1 meter and hence the material damage. Again, an example from France, apologies, but this is also an example that I like. It's from an eco district that actually, puts a lot of positive aspects together: water management, social housing, mobility, and so on. Much more of local level action examples that we funded. Of course, Denmark comes always strongly after the cloudburst event, where you have a mixture of blue or a green infrastructure. In Poland, there is a planning going on for adapting, covering at least 1/3 of population. We have a good example from Sweden, where actually the canal you see used to be a road in the past, and hence the school that is nearby doesn't have to face so much traffic and also so much emission. And of course, in my city, Bratislava, we also work a lot with water management, rainwater, and green spaces. Again, the green roofs, Copenhagen, but this can happen anywhere. You have a lot of facilities, industrial facilities, where the urban farming or the urban forests that we've heard about can very well take place and really, provide the multiple benefits. We like to always say, once you install your PV on a roof, it's good to actually combine it with green elements, because this provides the benefit of shade from the PV panel, but actually also the humidity for the PV. So that's definitely a co-benefit that very much is promoted. Now, you have heard, I'm sure, from Stefan Leine about the overall policy framing of the Green Deal. And similarly as Chantal, it's really a sort of lighthouse of the Commission, is the major investment opportunity in the future, and we are looking the recovery plans that we look now at through the lenses of the Green Deal. So I can reassure you, we are making a case for nature-based solutions many times to countries, but I must tell you, unfortunately, this is not always well accepted, and there's still this sort of thinking that gray or cement is better than nature. The new strategy, now let me move to the new strategy take that we have on climate adaptation, which is quite different from the past in the sense of having a much more comprehensive policy approach towards climate adaptation, because exactly climate impacts are already there. Europe is threatened. It's not anymore just the developing countries. So we need to do more. And so what we will do, you will find out in the next seconds. So you certainly have heard about the vision of climate neutral Europe, which means essentially zero emissions. And what is emitted has to be removed. Now, we have equipped Europe also with a new goal of climate resilient Europe, where the unavoidable impacts should be reduced. How? Well, we want to use the power of data, of digital transition to make the adaptation smarter. As you know, we can project, thanks to modeling, a lot of what may happen, and then test in safe space an impact, for instance, for a city, for a street, for a region. More systemic, so thinking more nature-based solution, but in a system, not just a sort of patches of projects. Faster, go full speed and finance innovation demonstration, and of course also work with international partners. We are financing green nature-based solutions elsewhere, just to mention the Great Green Wall you may have heard about in Africa. Now, on the smarter adaptation, here I would really bring to your attention two things. First of all, it's increasingly having benefits and co-benefits of the solutions we are proposing, and going for no regret measures when we have to decide under uncertainty. If I am a mayor in the city and I say, okay, in my city will warm very fast. Where do I have, according to my heat maps, where is the population? How does it play demographically? Where do I put my investments? And this very much goes in the direction of monitoring also, where do I have I lost in the past? Where are the damages? Are they repetitive? Does it mean that this area is at risk? Very important for landscape planning. Next, we want to promote much more these smaller scale, user-friendly plans that also help you to see where are the opportunities for the spatial planning. And here really comes the very push for nature-based solutions in all their beauty and scale. Faster adaptation, here, of course, as I mentioned, we would like to promote more funding, more demonstration, more innovation going into it. I think we need to test different approaches. Someone mentioned the climate-proof park. Indeed, we need to test different species and how they act under different climatic conditions. I must say, unfortunately, the forests, we have known them in our childhood, may not survive the test of climate in the future. And so we need to go into a new era, but of course, with respect of the biodiversity constraints. But this is a debate we need to have. And of course, talking about adaptation, without water would be too little. So we need to see how you include these climate risk, let's say, thinking into water resources and water planning in landscape. Here, I must confess, I have a certain frustration that in many countries there is still a proliferation of these fast and dirty. So better to have water in a dam or to go for, huge scale irrigation system, whereas we could think much more about the water retention in the landscape in a more intelligent way. And this requires really understanding how water cycles do work. Now, we do work very much also with international partners. And here really, I think what we have seen as one of the cause of people leaving from the land is the degradation due to climate impacts or other factors, increased tensions for water resources. So also, the settlements that we see become a source of increased climate vulnerabilities, and where the landscape thinking needs to be brought in. Thank you very much for your attention.
Elena, thank you very much for your presentation, and we are so happy with the efforts of the European Commission in bringing this topic further and to promote the nature-based solutions. Somebody in the chat mentioned green cannot without blue, with water. So what we should do is that we must make the connection between water and greenery, and also look at opportunities in retention of water, as you say, which is also very important. We must not only look at situations where there's too much water, but we must also look to situations where there's too less water, and how we can make the nature-based solutions fitting also for that situation. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and we are really looking forward to working together with the European Commission in establishing this strategy. So Elena, thank you very much for your presentation, and hope to have contact and to keep in contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to the landscape architects, because many of the nature-based solutions are thought about by the landscape architects. So what is their view on nature-based solutions? What do they look like? So I would like to give the word to the IFLA Europe, to Diana Cilescu, and she wants to explain something about the nature-based solutions and landscape architecture. Elena.
Thank you for having me here and for the opportunity to share experiences. I will share my screen now. Okay. Okay, now I think you can see my screen.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I will speak to you about the role of landscape architects in shaping the way the future looks. But I'm speaking from 2 points of view. First one is from an engaged professional community, and the second one is as landscape architects as individuals. So I will start my presentation with IFLA Europe. IFLA Europe, the organization that I'm representing today, is actually the European region of the International Federation of Landscape Architects, and our association has 34 national associations. And it's actually representing over 18,000 members, landscape architects from all over Europe. Our mission is first of all to promote and protect this profession at European level, but also at the international level. It's also to outline the role of landscape architect in all the policies that we have in Europe. Of course, to develop further the domain of landscape architecture, and to be involved on what is happening in Europe. And I'm speaking here especially about the European Green Deal. We are organized, I will say, in three main pillars. One that has to do with communication, the other one with education, and the third one with professional practice. And we have several objectives on each of them. For the communication, we actually aim to present what we do, but also what landscape architects do. We cooperate with several European organizations. We have here a few examples, and for us, the So Green platform is very important in order to bring further our message. In terms of communication, we have several directions that we are working on, but I will mention here the IFLA Europe resolution, which is actually a statement that landscape architects take each year on very hot topics like climate change, but not only. I will also mention the exhibition Landscape as a Common Ground, which is bringing to the public several examples from many countries that on landscape architects' work. And also not to forget the competition that we have for landscape students and young professionals that bring to the table also this young community of professionals. In terms of education, we are trying to establish guidelines in order to have a common framework for education in landscape architecture domain. We have here many projects, but I will mention these two, the IFLA Europe recognition panel, and also the InnoLand, that it's a project that is developing now at European level in order to provide this common framework for education. In professional practice, we are actually interested in, as I said, to protect the profession and also to help the profession in several countries where landscape architects have trouble in making their jobs. And here we are actually very involved in European policies, and we are working with Council of Europe, and we have many activities related to this. Of course, we are involved in a new project that arise, like agricultural landscape, and also the new European Bauhaus initiative that is developing right now in the design phase in Europe. Not only that, but we also are providing this educational approach, and we are developing guidelines for decision makers, but also we are making a lot of education for the larger public in order to attract attention and inform on different aspects like stormwater management. As I said, we are very involved at European level, and our aim is to outline actually the role of landscape architect, and we are working toward that because the role of landscape architect is a very complex one. Although it started, and many people still think that our profession is linked to the design part of the process, but actually the role of landscape architect is much broader than that, and actually it touches on health, it's touching on cultural landscape, on sustainability, and so on. So here I'm going to the part related to what actually professionals do. And as I said, although many of those around us think that we only make the design, I just make a note about what Elvin said earlier. Green is not a topping, and actually, yeah, green is not a topping, but if green it was a topping, people would have think that we are just designing it. And we do much more than that. Actually, we learn how nature works, and we are now trying to mitigate nature needs, but also human needs, because we have to bring nature among us, but also we have to be safe and stay healthy. Other thing that landscape architects do is think outside the box, both on planning and both on designing, and what future needs in terms of greening the cities and greening the spaces where we live. We also bring nature closer, but in terms of providing for us and finding solution for that. We also work on protecting biodiversity, and many of the projects the landscape architects approach are dealing with this topic. We are also bringing back nature in places where the nature was once chased from, like industrial sites or a river. And also we are thinking in terms of green infrastructure, and I will say blue-green infrastructure, I will say earlier. And also we are thinking in terms of networks. So to sum up, I will say that landscape architects are actually designing, but not only in terms of aesthetic, but also in terms of functionality. They are planning, they are making research-driven change, and they are educating others is a big part of what we are doing. And they are getting involved in public policies and actually in developing healthy, sustainable, and inclusive cities. We search for partnership, and for us, the So Green movement is very important. Thank you for your time.
Diana, thank you very much for your presentation, and it's very good to see what IVLA does. It's a lot of activities I see, and I see that there's also a lot of attention for skills within your association. I was wondering, what do you think about the linkage between, let's say, the architects on one hand and on the other hand, the green professionals who have to create and maintain those green projects? Can there be, let's say, more cooperation, and do you want to stimulate that?
I think that not only it should be, but without the cooperation, actually the design cannot be implemented and sustained over the time. And vice versa, without design, actually many of the projects, well, without a good design, many of the projects cost more on long term. So actually, I would say that we need each other, and it's very important to work with each other. But as we can see at European level, there are a lot of movements toward this cooperation.
Yes, that's very interesting to hear, because the projects must be well thought about, but later on well maintained in order to create and to maintain those nature-based solutions and benefits that we want to achieve. So I think that's great, and thank you very much for your presentation and the good work that the IVLA does.
Thank you.
So then we go to the natural bathing waters, and there's an international organization for that, the IOB. I don't know if many people know that this is a very upcoming branch within the green domain, so I'm very happy that we have today a presenter from IOB, Frans Kubacek, to tell us about the natural swimming waters. What is going on in that sector and how do they contribute to the nature-based solutions? Frans, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon from Vienna. I'm based in Vienna in Austria. And yeah, what's going on? It's a very big growing market, and it's a little bit the connecting of blue and green in the landscaping, as you talked before. And also, since 1 year, natural pools and swimming ponds are a nature-based solution product. So we are very proud of this. So I have to share my screen. Sorry for that. That's right. You can see?
Yes, it's on. Yeah.
So it's right now. Okay, I think it's okay.
Yes, it works. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, as I choose my title for this presentation, I had a lot of ideas what I can tell about my company and my growing up, and also the growing up of the market of natural bathing waters. And then I realized it's very hard to bring 38 years experience in this topic in 50 minutes of a presentation. So first, a little bit of my upcoming. I had a college, I visited a college for gardening in Vienna, finished it in 1983. And then I was the head of a green department, service enterprises, and I made maintenance for a lot of important houses in Vienna, also Vienna International Center. And I made the education for a subject teacher in 1985. And I don't practice it for a long time, but I started 5 years ago to teach in all landscape schools of Austria pond building. So it was not without any sense. I found my company in 1988 as a one-man show. And at this time, natural bathing waters was a very new thing in Austria. And everyone who knows anything about this topic, he was a proved expert. And this was my idea. I write on my business card, I'm a specialist for pond building. And I had no idea, as all the other guys at this time, but it was a very good marketing idea, I thought. And so my second order in my company was to build a pond, and I had no idea how we can do it. So I asked a friend of mine, please help me, what can we do? And we looked in some books, but the first we learned, the knowledge in books is not enough. In these books, it was the road to mix earth and sand and put it on the liner and put plants in it. And we did it like that. And after a few weeks, the pond was beautiful, like it exists for a lot of years. But half a year later, there was no water because only plants, too much nutrients inside, and the water was very dark green, so not the result that we want. But from this pond, for years, I put all my plants I need for my company, so it was like a nursery for myself. So we tried a lot of different substrates for the ponds. One of it, we called it wall material, like in a sand pit, the bugger take it from the wall, and we use this in the ponds. But the water was also murky about the fine particles. And so we tried different things for a lot of time, spent a lot of money, a lot of nerves, to develop new systems, because in the past ponds had a very other function in the gardens or in the parks, as we start with swimming ponds. And in this time in Austria, 5, 6 companies built this kind of natural waters, and everybody of them said, I'm the best, I have the best solutions. And I don't talk about, because if I tell someone how I do it, he will copy me and I lose my jobs or my orders. I make a tour through Austria and visit all these companies, and no one talk about. But they was very proud about their project at this time, and they showed me a lot of ponds, and so I can see something, how they do it, how they practice. And I put all the good parts I saw together and made my own system. And 1989, I built my first swimming pond. It exists since 2 years before, because it was PVC liner, and the liner was destroyed for 3 years, so they built it new now. Yeah, I built it with wood, not with concrete walls, and a lot of plants, water lilies, and so on. So as we did in this time, but I realized very soon. The first year, the customers were very happy. Oh, it's a very fine thing in the garden and nice energy. It's very fine to swim inside. The second year, they was not amused. They were not amused because the water was a little bit murky. There were algae. The third year, they were very unhappy because it was very much work, maintenance to keep it in a good condition. In the fourth year, they wanted to fill it up because they say it's not the product we want in our garden. But at the fifth year, they was very happy because the water was clear and the balance of the natural system was there. So I started to find solutions to make the functional ponds from the beginning to keep these 4 years of troubles out of my customers and for myself. And we tried to find a kind of biological filters. And at 1992, I met a guy from a company, Neptune, and he used zeolite to create a biological filter. He put a drain pipe and put zeolite around in the pond bank, and with a pump we sucked water over it. And I tried it in my own pond in my garden, and I realized really fast it's not possible to suck water for 30 meters around over a drainage pipe. And so I've tried to find new solutions. And this guy from Neptune, or the company Neptune, was closed soon because they had no money. But the deliverer of this zeolite, it was Arnold Clement. I think a lot of guys know him. We said we start a new kind of cooperation, and we try to find new solutions for biological filters. And with 2 other colleagues, we built ponds, and we say, okay, this kind is nice. These parts are not very well, so we changed for the next pond. With trial and error, we come to a good solution, and we called this system in Austria Aquaviva, and in Germany it was called Teichmeister. And the most of these of the filtration systems in Europe and now all over the world are based on this system. They changed materials, or they changed kind of sucking the water or press it through the filters. But the idea, I think, how it's possible to make biological filters came from this system. But with the system, there was new problems. Suddenly the water was mostly clear, and so there came string algae, visible slippery green surfaces, and we didn't know about if there is no nitrogen inside, they're growing cyanobacteria, blue algae, as we call it. Yeah, so the customers was happy with the water quality, but the surfaces they didn't like. And in 1997, a crazy guy entered my office. He looked like Mr. Einstein with white hair and a beard and always black, with black clothes. And he is an innovator, and he had a lot of patents for aquarium, for fish ponds and so on. And he said, I have a perfect filter system for swimming ponds. Yeah, and he said, I developed a small stream. I thought he is very crazy. But now we know these kind of filters copy the water treatment of a natural river. The streaming is through a surface, gravel, or in our kind it's rock wool. And in this, on these surfaces, there grow a biofilm, a lot of small animals. They eat all the substance from the water, all the nutrients and bacteria and all things, and store it in their body. And after the season, we stop the pump. So all these animals in the filter are died because they will die because there is no oxygen. And then you flush out these animals, and so all the nutrients are out of the system. So we can clean this kind of filters very easily. And the result, it's very successful. It's crystal clear water. And yeah, at this time, all the guys use brick earth in their ponds, and it was not possible to combine it with this kind of filter. But I used at this time washed gravel, and so it was near the system we call now type 4 and 5. And in 1999, we could guarantee crystal clear water. This was the first system. And this was the first natural pool, I think, in the world without any plants, only with a biological filter from 1999. And this pool is still running. We proved it with EPDM liner, so there is no fear that it will be unproved. Yeah. At 1998, around 10 pond builders come together, and they found the first association for pond builders in Austria and start to exchange their experience. And I think this was a very important step to bring more knowledge in the business. And it was a big jump in quality of this kind of natural waters. And with the power of this organization, the natural bathing waters started a real triumphal procession, I think, all over the world. I start with Hydrobalance 2005 to go out from Austria in neighbor countries like Germany, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Slovakia, Hungary, later Russia, Ukraine, Korea, Australia, and so on. And I did very crazy projects, like in Arabic countries. It is the guest wheeler of the Emir of Qatar in Doha. I heard about a fair in Doha, and I thought I want to visit Doha. It's a nice town, so I visited this fair I had a booth on this fair, and some guy I need 6,000 square meters pond for our Emir, and we did this project 1 year later. Anybody knows me, you're crazy. It's impossible to make natural ponds in this climate, but we did also a natural pool in Saudi Arabia. It's for the king of Saudi Arabia. It's 600 square meters with natural design and crystal clear water without any chemicals. So it's a very crazy situation. Also in Turkey, we had a lot of projects. The biggest one, 36,000 square meters. This is a quarter of a nice project in Istanbul. It's called Butterfly Project, or Kelebek of Turkey. It's one wing. It's around 4,000 square meters water surface. Together it's 8,000 square meters. Very nice this design, and very nice situation also for the inhabitants of these flats. Also big waterfalls. There's also in Istanbul, it's the waterfall garden. It's the 4 steps high, 28 meters with 600 cubic meter of water each hour. So it's a crazy project, and I opened my mind for really big and crazy projects. Not think about is it possible or it's too expensive or something like that. We do very nice things. Also, we designed a lot of bathing waters for hotels in Germany and Austria. Now we start in Croatia and Slovenia, also projects in hotels. It's crystal clear water, and the guests of the hotels, they love it very much. It's no chlorine inside, you have no dry hair, no dry skin, no red eyes. You can bath for hours inside, and it's not necessary to take a shower after it. So very, very fine situation. This is a children hotel, and also for small children, it's a very nice water quality and always a crystal clear situation. A few years ago, we visited with a booth with an Australian partner. We had a booth on the Chelsea Flower Show, and with a billabong, they call it. It's like a swimming pond with a waterfall and something like that. And the Queen visited us, also Prince Harry, and we won all these prizes. There are 3 prizes for public, for design, and for special. And all these 3 prizes went to our booth. So we was very proud for this situation. Yeah, the branch it's very dynamic, and at the moment with Corona, it's like an explosion. We can't do all this work which come to us. It's in the branch in every country. I think it's like that. Business rise up very fast. So if there is someone who want to start in this business, I think it's a very nice market. We help also newcomers. Most of my time I spend for teaching and for supports for other companies all over the world. We have from the north till equator, so every climate it's possible. So I think it's a very nice situation, and I'm looking forward to hear something about our audience now. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you the best for the new season.
Franz, thank you very much for your inspiring presentation. It's very nice to hear about the development and the experiences that you made through the past few years in order to create, let's say, a formula which works and is very attractive. And by the examples that you see, they're very attractive, that you can create natural swimming water without chloride. And of course, that's better for the environment, it may be more sustainable as well. So I think that this offers great opportunities, like you said, and the market is right for that. So we're really looking forward to further develop the natural swimming waters as a nature-based solution, and maybe also for ecosystem services, but especially, of course, for the health and well-being of people. Franz, thank you very much for our presentation.
Okay, thank you.
And then let's go to the municipalities, because the public green is, of course, a very important part of the green infrastructure in cities. And I'm very happy that today Carl McLean is here of World Urban Parks to explain to us what is the linkage between, let's say, municipalities on one hand and the professionals on the other hand. So, Carl, the floor is yours with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Egbert, and it's a pleasure to be here to present to everybody. I've been watching with great interest the presentation so far. So I'll just share my screen and get my presentation ready. So yes, I have been asked to come today on behalf of World Urban Parks as a member, essentially. I also sit on a few of the committees, but I'm here to give a member's perspective of what World Urban Parks is and what the benefits are, and how this affects the parks and green space sector across the world, essentially. My background's in park management, and whilst I've only been doing my current role with the Green Flag Award for 4 years, I was a parks manager for 7 years, and I really wish I joined World Urban Parks at the start of that, earlier on in my career, because some of the benefits I'm coming across now would have been really useful. So to set the scene, I thought it would be useful to give the context of what the organization I work for does within the park sector, and then that will help explain how we gain benefits from being a member. So I'm the International Development Manager for the Green Flag Award. You may not have heard of this, but Green Flag Award is an international accreditation program that recognizes and rewards well-managed parks through an annual assessment process, kind of like an ISO audit for public green space. Parks need to be free to enter, and we operate the whole program in a non-profit fashion using volunteers to carry out the judging. Now, it's got quite a history. It started in England in 1996 in response to declining standards of public parks. And what it set out to do was really write a new standard of what would look like a quality park, which in turn would provide a voice for the park sector, and then which in turn again aimed to influence decision makers who were at the time not investing properly in parks and public green space. And I think it's worth chucking in today, seeing as we're with Elca, that we've, to celebrate 25 years of the Green Flag Award, we've just partnered with Van den Berg to give a free silver birch tree to every Green Flag Award winner. And we're hoping to partner with other organizations in future along the way. The Green Flag Award itself, as I mentioned, it's an annual inspection audit. And it's not just about the beauty of parks. It, in terms of horticultural maintenance, it actually spans 8 key criteria, which we consider to be the sort of wider spectrum of what goes into managing a park well. And I suppose in terms of today's audience, the 2 criteria that kind of link closely with the So Green movement are criteria on environmental management and biodiversity, landscape and heritage, which are hot topics at the moment. So to date, from those humble beginnings in England in 1996, we now celebrate over 2,000 parks every year, applying every year to the award. And that doesn't just include your classic municipal public parks, it includes any public green space, from nature reserves, small neighborhood pocket parks, and a lot of botanic and historic gardens, providing that they're free for the public to enter. And the scope of our work so far is 15 countries around the world, and that's growing each year. Now, the vast majority of those 2,000 winners are based in the UK because that's where the program originated, but we're seeing lots of interest growing in other countries, especially around Europe, where we've started to establish partnerships with parks or environmental charities in those countries. And essentially what we're trying to do on a global scale is define what do we mean by good. There's a lot of talk in the sector in general about, providing access to parks and access to green space, which is very important. But a lot of the benefits that we talk about from that access, they're only really truly realized if the park is of a good quality, because actually poor quality parks deter people from visiting them and from accessing the benefits within their community. So we're trying to, and it's important to say that we use the same standard in every country around the world, the same standard, the same process, and it has to operate non-profit in every country around the world. So the program was started by a group of NGOs back in 1996, and about 10 years after that, the UK government adopted it. It was handed over to the UK government in ownership. And then the charity I work for, Keep Britain Tidy, we manage it on an international scale. but it's not a kind of dictatorship. Our intention is to partner with individual operators in each country, because that's the best way to deliver this program. The program is essentially designed to improve the standard of parks and green spaces. And so it's best that that is done from within each country around the world, such as, in Australia, we have Parks and Leisure. In Belgium, it's actually an environmental charity, Good Planet Belgium. In Ireland, it's the National Trust for Ireland. So we're always looking to expand our network and join with partner organizations in other countries. And they don't need to be charities. They could be a private company, provided they run it on a non-profit basis. And that's really important to our network. And that kind of links into the benefits we've got from World Urban Parks in connecting with a few of these organizations that we hadn't come across already. And so to date, I'll just quickly skip through some of the some photos of people celebrating the award in Europe. Antwerp was one of the first adopters in Belgium. They've now achieved 4 Green Flag Awards in the city. First time winner last year in Gothenburg, Sweden, Jonsered-Stradgar. University of Navarra in Pamplona in Spain is one of 4 winning parks in Spain, and we're hoping to see that grow today. And this is a good example. It's a university campus, but it's a public green space, and it contributes to all the green factors that we talk about. We're talking about in this seminar. And also a first-time winner last year, Wilhelmsberger Inselpark in Hamburg. It's great to celebrate with them. And I thought, because this is on behalf of Elca, it would also be worth kind of explaining that it's not just local municipalities that benefit from the Green Flag Award. We have an example in England where ID Verdi, a major landscape contractor, they actually celebrate that over 100 of their parks and green spaces that they manage as a company have achieved the Green Flag Award, and they actually apply for a lot of those themselves. And to put that in a context, Egbert, you were talking earlier with Diana about investing all this money into infrastructure, but then what happens after that? How is it well maintained? And Green Flag Award is a good example of how that can be done through an annual audit, annual inspection, an annual checkup to make sure the slow decline hasn't already started. And I think that's one area where Green Flag Award, or any annual audit, to be honest, can really help do that, which is really important. And also, through this kind of network with lots of countries, we've started to create a bank of resources on our website, which is completely free to access. There's no login or anything. And if anyone who's on the conference today has any free resources that they would like us to share on our platform, we'd be happy to do so. Just get in touch with me afterwards. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of Green Flag Award. It usually takes a good while to explain what the program is, because how the judging process works and everything like that. But that's a kind of crash course for everybody here. And if you want to find out more, get in touch with me, and I'll talk you through it. But now on to World Urban Parks. It is the only sort of international park-specific organization that represents the sector across the world. And they have a vision and a mission which really resonates with me as a parks professional, but also someone who equally advocates through the work I do to try and create better parks and green spaces for our communities, because essentially what this does is improves people's lives and improves the environment and improves biodiversity. So the vision and the mission is really important, and everybody who is a member adopts that as their mantra when they're working within the organization. And I've done my best to kind of summarize what the 3 main benefits of being a member are from my perspective. First of all, it keeps me really well informed as to what's going on in the park sector around the world, because there's no use, being in a silo, just looking at your own country and looking at your own city. Really, a lot of the people on the call today will appreciate that it's really useful to keep informed as to what's going on elsewhere around the world. Secondly, through a network and a directory of members, it keeps us engaged with what's going on, and that network keeps us connected with other people. So it's really easy to sort of just get in touch with another city or municipality or a company and say, you're a fellow member of World Urban Parks and we're interested in this similar agenda. You know, could we talk about possible collaboration? And how that looks within the structure of World Urban Parks, there are lots of different types of organization going on within World Urban Parks, but I chose for this presentation just to focus in on something like the advocacy committees, which is where groups of individuals with particular interests get together, hold regular meetings, present webinars, and discuss things like national policy, any new research that's going on, sharing case studies, and also highlighting innovative approaches to particular challenges or particular topics within the green space sector. And on top of this advocacy structure, there's also regional committees. So there's a Europe committee of World Urban Parks. I was on the call earlier this morning. And that's the same for other parts of the world where people are discussing. And then those are brought together through an alliance committee. So there's lots of cross-pollination going on, lots of communication going on between the park sector in every country. As a organization, World Urban Parks also then issue collective statements about some of these topics and decisions that have been made about what's best for the sector. And on top of that, they're also really pushing, trying to improve the training and education side of the park sector. They've got a partnership with Indiana University, the Epley Institute for Parks and Public Lands. And through that, they run the World Parks Academy, where people can become a certified parks professional, which is a recognized accreditation backed up by Epley. And it really, for me, it kind of says that World Urban Parks is connected to sort of the next leaders of public parks across the world. These are the people that will be the decision makers going forward. And there is a lot of young talent within the organization at the moment. And on top of that, they also run hugely successful conferences on an annual basis. Even last year, when there was due to be a conference in Tirana in Albania, obviously couldn't happen, but regardless of that, there were still over 50 speakers and over 400 people in attendance. And the way it was set up was that you can still attend all the webinars or watch them 6 months afterwards. So if you missed something, you can always catch up. But conferences happen across Europe and across the rest of the world, and they are very successful and a good way to network, and also a good opportunity for contractors and companies to possibly sponsor or showcase their products, be it trees, be it some sort of landscape equipment. There is the opportunity to do that both virtually and in person. And so in terms of the global scale, there's a mixture of national contacts, so there might be several contacts within each country, and there's also international representatives in each country. And this brings forward lots of collaboration opportunities and the opportunity to build really strong relationships with people. And I have to say, it's a really friendly organization. It's, you know, you pick up the phone and you chat to someone. There's, you know, there is formality to it, but it's really good to have a sort of friendly connection with people, and I really like that. So before I sum up, I just thought I'd put a slide on the types of members. It's not just parks organizations, it's also national associations, city authorities, even some smaller local authorities, small town authorities. There's a couple of members like that. There's a few landscape contractors, and I think there's room for more communication actually with through Elca with the kind of commercial side of parks. I think quite often, let's just say, because parks and green spaces are quite often public sector led, we sometimes overlook the knowledge and professionalism that an understanding that can come from private commercial contractors. Because I think, from my experience, they're often at the forefront of innovation, new technology, trying new things. So I think we could really benefit from a better dialogue with commercial organizations within World Urban Parks. And also there's individuals as well that join as professional members. And membership's quite affordable. As an individual, it is around €70, 70. a year, and as a small organization, it's €350. So that's quite accessible if you want to get into this world of parks and green spaces and start to network with everybody and receive those benefits that I talked about before. So just to sum up, like I said, as a member, I feel it's really good to keep informed of things. It's really good to stay engaged with the sector, and it keeps me connected with not just, at an organizational level, but I've made lots of personal contacts along the way as well. And we'd really welcome anyone who's on the call today to have a look at becoming a member or having a conversation about becoming a member and finding out more about the benefits. So if you want to find out a bit more as well, we have obviously websites, and you can get us on all the social media handles, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and have a surf around both websites and find out a bit more. And I think I have successfully finished on time.
Yes, you did, Carl. Thank you very much.
That's my rapid Irish tone, speaking a bit too quickly probably, but I hope it helps shift the program along.
It went perfectly. Yes, thank you very much. And the people are all invited to look at the websites, of course, to see what the organization is doing and what the Green Flag movement is. I think it's wonderful to hear your activities and to know what the network offers, but also how you're looking for partnership and also showcasing good green projects in order to bring knowledge further and to bring the network further. So that's very good to hear. Thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And now I have the honor to go to the perspective of the European Parliament. I'm very happy that Mrs. Sirpa Pietikainen is present in our meeting today. I'm very curious, Sirpa, in what way do we contribute? What are the actions that you see are important for So Green? The floor is yours.
Thank you. And let me start by thanking you first, because this is exactly how you can contribute. Because when I'm talking about green infrastructure or green urban areas, sometimes you find really wonderful experts like today who can explain everything about green roofs and elderly people and the quality of the air and the importance of the parks and ecosystems and biodiversity. But quite often you need people that actually make a question, what is green infrastructure? So if you need a year for urban green infrastructure, what do we need? What that would mean, and how that actually would work? And there's a lot of work to be done. But what is the good side of the story? The information, the knowledge, and the active networks are already there out. And I've been following today's discussion with a lot, very carefully, and with a lot of excitement, because I like very much the combination, the package that you have put together. And my point actually is trying to answer a bit to that question, if you may. So what needs to happen if we are talking about this kind of a green year? How should we go forward, and what are the issues? And first of all, I would create a huge network where I would have all these specialists that we've heard today, and there's still quite a number out there in environmental organization, architects, and you name it. But the main message is, and someone should produce that kind of a background information, hopefully with Commission support. What is urban and green infrastructure? And here you have some examples. You guys all know it. I don't know, just in case that someone wouldn't learn it already by now. It is all what we can add and what we have already in urban areas that is green. So it is inside the buildings, it is outside the buildings, it is outside the buildings, in walls and in roofs, and it is in street areas, trees and plants on street sides, Or, for example, I've been so fascinated with this kind of a bus stops roofs, what you can have a green roof and a real small jungle. Or I love those pocket parks, you know, what you can tuck between two buildings. So sometimes it can be huge parks, and those are like Central Park. They are needed, and we should cherish and plant them in the cities. But also those small pocket parks, what you can address even if you would be a toddler or an aged person who has a difficulty to walk 100 meters. And so basically everything green. But that needs to be planned. But I'm coming back a bit to the planning. But no, let's see what we can see in the next slide. And I think that we should underline the fact that this is not a small thing, because by 2030, urban areas are projected to house 60% of people globally. And that figure is drastically growing. And it has quite a lot of benefits when it goes to production, the easiness to get the services, or that matter deliver the services, to create global competitive businesses. But that means that we need to start thinking the nature interaction totally on different way. And our thinking is still a bit of the old. You know, you don't need to go more than 100 years or a bit longer back. And it was so that you were out mostly. You walked out, you worked out, you commuted out, and then you had a shelter. And that was almost the exception. Now it is an exception that you can be out with green. You are mainly walking, living, sleeping, and commuting in urban built human environments. And so you have to green them back, take the green back in, and not to do something like extended living a room where you sort of push the green out, the nature out, the wild, the wet and cold out, but where you integrate it. And if you look at these figures, they will get to close 60, from 60% up to over 80% of the population by 2050. And that is not that far either. That means that we are urban animals, ants in a way. And that's why we need to take it seriously now, because changing urban infrastructures, the 20 years or 30 years is not that long time. Okay, then the next. I think that we should describe very carefully what are the benefits for greening the environments. That is out there, and we all have spoken it today already. But if you don't clearly articulate it to that kind of a people that are not familiar, that it might not be so clear to the mayor, to the prime minister, or to the commissioner, or who decides over the funds and who decides over projects. Why do we need to have it? The first one is, of course, human beings, the health benefits and accessibility. It is the social benefits, and it is a huge environmental benefits and economic benefits. And to look them a bit even closer on the next one, but this is sort of the 4-column differentiation sort of structuring that I would use. And then to go a bit deeper in the next one, if you look at the health benefits, that we know already as well, but you would need to underline it together. It is the air quality. It is improving the immune system by direct contact with the nature. And by the way, the air quality is growing in the worries as well as allergies, because every 8th death was related to bad air quality. And the green environments are known to bind the small particles from the air. Then it has health benefits in that way that when it creates accessibility, who of you would like to walk or run or exercise in busy street or motor highway where you have only very narrow stripe for people with bikes and feet and baby trolleys? But if you plan the city from the people perspective, from the accessibility, you have a nice park like this, or the smaller parks if you do not need that much of a space. You can create all the gyms outside, not only in USA, in Los Angeles, in the beaches, in the beaches, but here also in Nordics, in middle of the Europe and in southern of the Europe. You can create that kind of a living rooms for people, places to meet and greet, to have the picnics and restaurants and gatherings and political meetings and family meetings. And that has been underlined very heavily under the COVID, how big importance this has had. And while we do that and outside, we exercise, we move, we breathe the air and get the oxygen. And it is all, be it a little or a lot, it's good for our health compared that we sit next to our computers that we so often do. And actually we do, of course, good for the environment then. And we can create new habits like, do you know about the walking meetings where you can actually have a handful of people sitting and walking outside and pondering the big problems? Because actually being out and walking helps the blood to flow on your brain, and it improves your creativity. And what is another important point, and this was underlined, and I guess many people experienced that one during the COVID, is that spending time in the nature decreases stress, lowers blood pressure, reinvigorates brain and memory, prevents depression, and enhances mental health and well-being. And it's not even costly. Think what you could do with that. So the health benefits are totally clear. Then another one. Sorry, this is allergy, by the way, but it tells that the summer is coming in Finland. Then the next ones, I just wanted to put here some, you can use this later on, that the coronavirus just taught us quite a number of other issues. But the social benefits, and just to gather them together, and I've been discussing about these facts with AIDS Europe, with AIDS interested societies, with women's lobby, with children organization. It gives the possibility to meet as I said. It is a friendly environment for children. It gives that kind of an accessibility, for example, in different ways of disabled people, provided that we build the green infrastructure as such. And our societies are aging heavily. And there, if anywhere, we need, because of the health, but because of the social structure, the network. Think of the Chinese elderly people were making exercise and meeting in the parks, for example, or the Spanish playing jazz, or we could give millions of examples. And it gives the possibility for shared, strong sense of a community. It is important that then when we create this urban infrastructure and green, like in other buildings, and with the Bauhaus spirit, it should have this participatory approach and co-creation. Let's go and meet and ask the people when you start building, not only then when you've done it already. And of course, the environmental benefits. It absorbs carbon dioxide. It's one of the biggest unexplored sources of increase in sinks, the urban green. It mitigates the impacts of adverse weather conditions. We heard about the flooding already, but extreme colds, extreme heat waves, they are paved easier, and extreme waves and humidity and dryness. And when well planned, it is a huge possibility for biodiversity and the biodiversity enhancing ecological corridors and ecosystems. It has environmental benefits that when we create accessibility by biking and walking and running and plan the cities as such and urban areas, we use less fossil based polluting ways of moving. And it is better, it's fun, and as said, it's good for our health. And these should be underlined very heavily because they are interactive. The climate change are accelerating and the biodiversity is deteriorating, then they are interacting. So there's the acute need for green infrastructure to facilitate for us to cope and manage both the biodiversity, the vegetation, to manage with heat waves, and on the other hand, to help us to cope with the biodiversity with the heat wave. Okay, then what else? It has economic benefits. Would you like to live in an area looking like this? Or would you like to live in an area that was in the first slide? And basically, when we have studied different parts of the urban areas, that the housing is pretty similar and the shopping centers and all facilities. Those ones with better greenery have higher prices per square meter than those ones that with only with cement and concrete. So people intuitively prefer green environments. So it adds the value of real estates, improves the reputation, attractiveness, and the quality of life in the neighborhood. And these are the old studies, you probably know them from England. When you have very torn down, you could almost call them slums, but let's talk about neighborhoods. If you improve it and you add a lot of green and possibility to do together, like common urban farming, suddenly people start taking care of their environments. They enjoy it. They look at as a beautiful thing where they enjoy, and there's less tagging, vandalism, and other actions. And then, of course, economic benefits. And I guess Elca knows this pretty well, but we should know it otherwise too. It is all work that creates jobs and businesses, and it can create that kind of a jobs that can facilitate entering to the working market for long-term unemployed people, people with some issues like they might have lower educational level, or they might be actually very lately moved on the area, so they be migrants. Okay, then the next one. And this is where I'm trying to put them all together. So this would be sort of the big picture. What is green years and why we need them? And then where we stand now is that European Parliament's plenary actually decided, and the Environment Committee prepared the initiative for European Green Year for greener cities. And now it was due to the coronavirus situation have been postponed, and now probably until the year 2023. And what we would need is to understand the aim and then to start kicking and screaming, let it be going. both towards the Commission and to our member states and council and to organizations. The aim is to create this awareness, what we have been talking about this whole day, to create a platform where what could join together all the forces, not only these ones, but quite a number of other forces that are interested about it, to create a web page and a resource site of all the studies and examples what we have worldwide and in Europe. A possibility to share examples and to invite companions to test it in Madrid and in Helsinki or in London and in Warsaw. And the idea is that beside raising the awareness of all these aspects, health benefits, environmental benefits, economic benefits, and social benefits, it would create a model. Okay, what do you then need to do? Who needs to do? What is the role of the government? What is the role of the EU? What is the role of the citizens? What is the role of the mayors? And so put all those efforts together. And to put some money and to increase research and scientific developments on this side as well. And then I would like to add one point, just in case that we hopefully have listeners and participants from that side. We shouldn't only be those ones that are already geeks of the green cities talking about this. We should invite and get together all those interested parties. What that means? It means as I said, the NGOs for elderly people, and to bring their needs and hopes and aspects, what this accessible and walkable green city is. Because these people need to be included to have the good results. To bring women's organizations, to bring children's organizations, youth organizations, disability organizations, to bring the mayor's covenant in the EU to make the action, to bring green then, the environmental organization, to tell how the biodiversity can be saved or whatever is the point, to build, to bring in these sports and other activity organizations whose interest is to run in this kind of an environment instead of a bad environment. And I could go on for how long. And what I really hope would happen now is this kind of a launch of a So Green that would connect all the people and organizations having an interest for greener and better environment. And then, thank you. We'll go forward. And the idea is just to kick the ball rolling, and the thing going on.
Sirpa, thank you very much for your sharing your vision with us, sharing the idea that you have for the importance of greenery and to bring it further. We are really looking forward to the year of the greener cities and to get involved in that. And I think, Sirpa, it's great to have an ambassador with a vision like this in bringing this further together. So thank you very much for your presentation and being here with us today, and hope that we can keep in touch as much as possible in bringing this further. Thank you very much, Sirpa. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had so many very interesting presentations and very inspiring speakers today. And so I would like to have a short discussion now with Henrik Bos, who is president of the Elca and initiator of the So Green movement. Henrik, if you see all these very important and very nice nature-based solutions examples, if you see all these inspiring people, what does it say to you?
Yeah, I have really enjoyed this whole day. I mean, it makes me humble to see the inspiration of these people, and especially suuri kiitos sulle, Sirpa, olet ollut korvaamaton apu tässä kaikessa. a huge thank to the people of these official positions in European Union, and we need the support. And we can see that there is an ambition in all of us, also in the stakeholders and on the politicians, that these are the issues that we together want to push on and see it as a possibility and actually a need for the future living in an urban society.
So this was our, let's say, first public appearance as the So Green movement. What do you think, Hendrik? What will be next?
No, I think we have achieved a lot. I mean, we can see even now that just by knowing each other, knowing our strength, and then understanding that these issues are so big that we really need each other. In the past, we too much looked our self, our own profession, our own sector, and we tried to boost it. Of course, a lot of these associations, they are business association, professional associations, so they are concentrated on the content. But now we can have to look outside. The need is bigger than us. We need to work together. We have to bring the information, the technology up to the standards what is needed in the future when people are gathering into these concrete cities, and we need to make it livable. We also need to understand that I really love the idea in the beginning when this wonderful young person who is working in my company was talking about that the future needs to come from the families, from the children. So we need to understand that we are creating a base for the future where the children of today are living tomorrow. And this message has to be clear. That there can't be any hesitation that is this too expensive or can we do this? That is not an option. That is something what we need to push forward and understand that we are the decision making and we are creating the atmosphere and possibilities for the future. This is our responsibility.
Yeah. So we've made a, let's say, common statement within the So Green Declaration, which is, let's say, the basis of what we are doing, our common message of how it will be brought further. If you might say a final call to the spectators of today, what would that be?
Well, the final goal is never ending. That's one for sure. I'm sure that in the future we will have more and more challenges. We have to understand that there are a lot of things that we just can't help. The nature will transform. The nature really doesn't care about people. We are just so small part of the whole nature, and the nature will prevail. But can we prevail in this nature? This is the big question. We have to be humble and we have to have the professionals on this straight to really join together and have an opportunity and make it more faster decisions, technical solutions, production. We can see now that a simple flu made plant production in Europe, what was never an issue, that we can't have the plants for our projects. So we are very vulnerable and we have to understand the circumstances. We can have enormous weather conditions. These are the things what will be coming more and more in the future, no matter what decisions we make. We have to create an environment that we can live healthier and longer in this planet. How long, I don't know. I'm not here to see it, but still, it is a huge importance that we take the actions right now. And we need the professionals from all sectors, not only from one sector. There is not a single solution that this one solution will save us all. This is not an American movie where they just kick an asteroid and everything goes well. No, this is an ongoing process, will continue for decades and hundreds of years, but we have to take the actions today that after hundreds of years, there still be a place for people to live in this planet.
That's beautifully said, Hendrik. So it's just starting today. There's a lot of work and a lot of things to do. But thank you very much, Henrik, for taking up the initiative to create this So Green movement. And that now many shoulders are carrying this initiative and bringing this further, because we see that there's a challenge that we can do together. Henrik, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Egbert. And I really enjoyed this day.
Okay, thank you. That's very good to hear. And together with Marie, we have been looking at the chat, and I received some questions. And during the presentations and at the end of the presentations, I tried to put the questions in. So I did as much as possible. There are a few questions left that we will answer later on the platform that we have available for this conference. So I would like to conclude. Today we have been discussing many societal challenges. They are huge and they are urgent. What we can offer are nature-based solutions and ecosystem services. And we saw them today, lots of very good examples, existing examples that we could work further on. Of course, we need more when it comes to partnership, when it comes to education, when it comes to attracting youngsters also to this work. There's a lot of work to do, but the beginning is there. The beginning is there, what we did together. And I think that we form a very beautiful coalition of many specialists in several branches that create this So Green movement, but that we put this practice together with policy, as we have decided and discussed today, together with the people of the European Commission, of the IUCN. The movement that we are making now further is really, really great and very inspiring. And that is, my dear ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to say. We have now the opportunity to speed up and to scale up. And let's make that the beginning of what we have talked and discussed today about. I would like to give a digital applause to our speakers today, who were so kind to inform us and to inspire us, to give us so many views on what we can do together, to get to know each other and to know what kind of activities, what we can do. I would give a digital applause to you, to the viewer, that you are here this afternoon to hear about what the opportunities are and how we can cooperate. This is a beautiful start. So let's make more out of it. And that is, my dear ladies and gentlemen, the wish that I have today, that we will meet again, continue to meet again, to discuss again, to inspire again, and to bring green back to life, as Sirpa said in her contribution to this program. So I would like to say thank you very much. Until the next time. Goodbye.